YouTube gods are smiling on us. We should be live. Hey,
Hello,
there's the
YouTube.
video. All right. It took a second, but there we go. We got there. Welcome to Talking Heads, everyone. Episode 367, your once-weekly live show for the latest in beer and tech news. I'm Jeff, and we've got a special guest today.
I'm Jordan without a beard.
You're Jordan without... I did not expect when we got onto a call to have the superior beard tonight.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we just jump scared half the audience.
I'm sure we did.
There's a bit of a story. There was a tradition in our house before I started appearing on camera, and I discontinued it for a year. But every year, one of the last elf on the shelves is the elf steals the beard, and kids come downstairs and it's got it. And then this year it was a big hat for the elf and the baby elf, so it was worth it. But it's coming back pretty quick and pretty strong, so yeah. I feel good about it.
Nice. I love the image of elf on a shelf just like with your beard over his shoulder.
Yeah, and in the clippers nearby and everything. It's great.
Yeah,
if you put the whole thing in like a hair tie, it keeps it really nice.
Yeah. That's awesome. If you've never seen the show before, we talk beer, we talk tech, we talk games, pop culture, entertainment, sometimes some Star Trek if you couldn't tell by the decor. All super chats are read on the air so long as they will not permanently demonetize the channel. We do drink alcohol in the show, and if you're drinking along with us, alcoholic or not, let us know in the chat and we'll give some early show shout outs as we go along. Last but not least, if you'd like to take part in the super secret chat and the even more super secret after party, think about joining the Patreon. Link is down in the video description. And as a bonus, you'll get exclusive access to my Discord server. This guy gets in for free. I don't know how he weaseled that out of me, but it's a pretty awesome community. You can talk with myself, John, Rhett, Steve, the normal host from Talking Heads. We've also got people like Jordan and an entire awesome community of people that hang out literally every single day. Come check us out. Minimum it costs you to get in is $1, and that's literally a fee just to keep the trolls at bay.
It's worth the buck. I have a lot of fun in there. I don't pay the buck, but I think we've exchanged enough beers back and forth with each other that it evens out. Right?
I think we're about even.
Yeah.
Oh, got a lot to talk about tonight.
It's been a week in tech.
It has been a week in tech, and it's only Wednesday.
And it's only hump day. Yeah.
Right. The RTX 5080 reviews went live this morning, at least for the Founders Edition, and a lot of people are underwhelmed. A lot of people are disappointed. I haven't gone live with mine yet. I've done some testing on the Founders Edition. I'm waiting for my AIB cards to come in. I've got one or two of those. One of them was delayed in customs and won't be here until tomorrow. And so haven't been able to see if there's additional overhead or what goes on with that. But I figured instead of trying to post 2 reviews and go through the whole GPU review process, I'm just going to post a super review of both cards at the same time. So if you liked my 5090 review, look out for that. And we'll chat some of the early results from the 5080 tonight. But probably the bigger news tonight is DeepSeek AI tanking $600 billion worth of Nvidia stock in 3 days.
Yeah. That's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about, is that overreaction? Is it underreaction? What is DeepSeek? Why are some investors and some heavy hitters in the AI space kind of freaking out about it? And kind of what does it mean to the best of our ability? I'm certainly not an LLM expert, although I try to play one on TV. But we do know the hardware. We can talk at least from that perspective on maybe what this means today and maybe moving forward. And also got some AMD RX 76 or 7600 9070 AMD. Would you name a product the same 2 generations in a row? Just
I can't keep up with the AMD naming.
You had done it. You normalized it with 5000 series and then 6000 and then 7000, and then you're like, no, we don't want to do that anymore. We're going to change one of the digits.
Well, and they did the same thing with the MI Instinct series on the data center side.
That's correct. Yeah.
200 and 210.
Yeah.
And then you got the upgrade, and then now there's 300, 310, I think, and the
325. Yeah,
25 and a
325.
50.
Yeah,
I
and
think
they
there's
and they
a
all have varying layouts and configurations and
yeah.
yeah. Whoever is in charge of naming things over at AMD needs to take the Mitch Hedberg class. What does this thing does? It stirs stuff. Well, that's called a stirrer.
Yeah.
I'm going on
it,
break.
it would be it would be so much easier just to keep it sequential.
It really would.
And like at least for a little while with Intel, you could kind of like get behind the 12,900, 13,900 and kind of like figure it out. And then that went off the rails. Ryzen stuff went off the rails because it used to be, it can be a 9,700 SKU chip, but it's actually a five. And it's like,
Well, that's on the mobile
why are we
series. The
doing this?
desktop, they've managed to stay basically the
It's
same since
mostly okay.
inception,
Yeah.
which is fantastic. They did skip a couple digits in there, and I really wish they would have come out because 1000 series was Zen 1. And then they came out with Zen Plus, which they knew was an intermediate step, which is why they named it Zen Plus, and they named it 2000 series. And then they went 3000 series for Zen 2. And then they skipped 4 because they had done some mobile iterations in the middle, and they skipped 4 on the desktop almost entirely, except for a couple very specific business SKUs, and went to 5. And then they skipped 6 and went to 7, and then they skipped 8 and went to 9, although there are still some 8,000 SKUs floating around out there as well for some like weird edge business cases.
There's like I think that's an Epic AM4 chip, right? The 8,000, or is it the 4,000?
No, those are 9,004 or 4,004.
No, yeah, 4,004.
4,004.
It's like, so we're back to 4?
Yeah. Suddenly it's 4 again? AMD, stop it. Stop it.
Please make it easier. You know how many tech companies I have to keep track of?
But it's going to be a good show. But I only have one way I like to start a show. Jordan, do you have any drinks lined up? I didn't ask you in the pre-show.
I do. Full transparency. Did get a late invite, but I'm happy to be here. I have some very fine, freshly cracked Coors latte that was in the back of the fridge.
That'll work.
And then when that runs out, and if that does run out, I do have to work tomorrow. We've got some Don't Poke the Bear.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So should be a interesting night if we end up that far down.
Yeah.
the glass.
Well, this one, I actually did open this beer in a recent video. I think it was, which video was it? I don't remember, but I bought it specifically for the can because I was walking through the store and I look up, and on the top shelf of my local grocery store, I saw this 4-pack. And as soon as I looked up, I went, well, that's going in the cart. It is the Silver Falls Brewery.
Okay.
Haze Ghost Coast to Coast.
Yeah. I would have immediately picked that up too. Have you tried it yet? Because sometimes the buy it for the can is a real crapshoot.
It is a real crapshoot, but that is my preferred method of buying beer, is what's got the best label right now. And yeah, sometimes it steers you wrong, but sometimes it's a happy surprise. This one is a very hazy IPA. It is one of those mid-teens hazy IPAs where the bite is much worse than the bark. It's got a lot of acid buildup in it. But overall, it does also have like a lot of the niceties of the hazies of that era, where it's super citrusy. It's got a lot of that grapefruit and guava and passion fruit and those kind of notes to it. It is the definition of a hazy juice bomb. So
that is hazy.
It is very hazy. Normally I do the light test for the stouts, but
Oh
Okay,
wow.
so we're getting some light through there, but if you look in the dead center, it's stopping it through the dead
It's
center.
yeah.
So yeah,
Well, I'll have to try one of those next time I end up out that way.
yeah. So it
Oh,
is hazy.
Jason in chat jogged my memory. 8,000 AMD is the APU Zen 4. There's
Oh,
an
that's right,
85,
eighty-seven hundred G.
6,
Yeah,
and 700G. And I should know that I'm staring at the boxes right there.
I
So,
did know that because I have an eighty-seven hundred
yeah,
G. Yeah,
yeah,
but see how hard it is to keep track.
yeah.
Like the APUs were part of your main stack. That's why we got the 5600G. That's why we got the
Mhm.
5700G. Suddenly they need their own first decimal point.
Yeah.
Stop it.
it's it's something else. That 8700G though, man, that's I've got that actually in my main NAS, and I use that thing on pass through for VMs, and it's nice to have a little bit of acceleration. It's not you can play some games. You really put your mind to it.
Once you go GPU accelerated VMs, it is really hard to go back.
Yeah. Even like my servers, like I have a handful of older like Quadro cards and
Oh yeah,
some I picked up actually just in the last couple months here a couple of T4 cards off of eBay for pretty cheap.
nice.
And not only do you get the compute benefit and the transcode benefit if you have a lot of video files that need to be transcoded for reasons,
Mm-hmm.
you get the VM or the remote desktop acceleration out of it.
Yes. Yeah, I have 4 Tesla P4s around here. I also have a T4, and the T4 is actually what I'm using in my main VM server right now. And I've got it in 4 gigabyte chunks where I can give my Plex VM a 4 gig thing, and it's got all the transcode it could ever want.
Yeah.
And then I've got a couple other standard VMs that I can just remote into, and hey, cool, I've got video acceleration. I can watch a YouTube video on here if I need to. And it doesn't struggle or slow down. It's fantastic.
Yeah, the T4s are stout little cards. I like them a lot.
Yeah.
The nice thing too is, like you said, being able to chunk it up and kind of put it to different purposes.
Mhm.
Just that little bit. I mean, like Intel has the Flex GPU where they really, I mean, who knows what's going on with that these days, but they really did a good job with those things at the time. So hopefully those will start coming down at some point and hitting the home lab market.
Yep. I did have someone in my Discord actually offer to loan me a Flex 140, which is the Intel A380 based one. And that one, it's kind of hard to get excited about because it's not enough for gaming, but it is plenty for like standard video acceleration in VMs. Like you could split that card 16 ways and end up with 16 VMs, and that's really the intended purpose of that GPU. But I can't play 16 games on it. And so it's like the little thing in the back of my brain, it's just not scratching that itch quite right. And I'm going, do I borrow the card and do a video? Probably, but am I super excited? I don't know.
I'm sure between the two of us, we could scratch together 16 friends to play 16 gamers, one CPU.
I'm sure we could. I mean, I've got a Genoa 64 core in my rack right now. I still have my dual Xeon 6 CPUs, which unfortunately lost 30% of its total value today. But
yeah,
we'll talk more about that.
Well, that speaks a lot to the rest of what's going on out there right now in the CPU market.
Yes. And actually speaks a little bit to kind of the GPU market as well, and I think that's where we'll kind of start things off. Is the RTX 5080 founders reviews are out. Hold on, there it is. That's my 5080. It's up there. Yeah, so the reviews are out, and you and I were talking before the stream. As we often do, and we often waste our best material when you or I talk together before we turn the cameras on, about the 5080 and kind of the reaction, and we're not seeing as big of numbers as we expected or as gamers really wanted and anticipated. And I I kind of want to play both sides of the coin here and bring a little nuance, as I like to do to a lot of discussions, and talk about where we're actually at and what are we complaining about, and is it a valid complaint, and what are we actually seeing?
Do you want me to pull up PC Master Race and play Angry Internet Troll while you do that?
Go ahead and play Angry Internet Troll. Yeah, let's good cop, bad cop this. I like that.
I'll play that game.
Mm-hmm.
So is if you TDP correct it, though, for the same TDP of a 4090, a 5090, or 80 in this case, even 80 to 80, it's just an overclocked version, right? Like, it's got some better cooling, but a couple percentage here and there.
It's got some better cooling. Obviously, it's a much more efficient design cooler. You can cool, in the case of the 5090, 600 watts very efficiently in a 2-slot space. Holy crap. I will bring up both my prediction that I had for Blackwell consumer GPUs, and I will kind of play both sides of that coin. We knew, or we had an idea of what Blackwell GPUs were going to look like, because Blackwell already existed in the server space for 9 months prior. Blackwell GPUs, the B100, the B200, those have been on the server market since March of last year. Which means we as server reviewers have had access to Blackwell architecture versus Ada architecture versus Ampere architecture for quite some time. And I said in my 5090 review, like, calculating the per CUDA performance is an inexact science. You really can't do it. But at the same time, you get a general idea. And so I was looking at FP16 and FP32 specifically between Blackwell and Ada. And Blackwell on the server cards, on the server SKUs, they were showing a tendency to be about 40% faster CUDA core regularized or normalized. And so I expected when we got Blackwell consumer GPUs, we would see a similar 40, possibly even higher uplift because of the better cooling performance and because of maybe some better binning and better overclocking performance. It has been 9 months. It is a much more refined process than it was when the original GPUs launched. And so I was expecting somewhere between 40 and 50% uplift over Ada per CUDA core. So we were also getting, 10, 12, 14% more CUDA cores on the individual SKUs. From the 4080 non-super to the 5080, we saw 11 or 12%. From the 4090 to the 5090, it's closer to 15%. So, add better efficiency, better per core clocks, and better architecture overall. Sounds like another solid release for Nvidia. But then we got our gaming cards, and we're seeing a max on the 5090 of 30% better than the 4090, which is, no way to put it, underwhelming. And then on the 5080, people are really down on it because we're seeing some reviews are saying as low as like 4 to 8%, like single-digit percentages.
I'm looking at one right now on video cards that's quoting 4 to 11%, I think. And then also that there's slower than a 4080 Super Duper.
Yeah, there were a couple benchmarks, notably CS2, which ended up slower than a 4080 Super. However, it's hard to take an individual game that probably doesn't have optimized drivers. Who the heck at Nvidia is working on an optimized driver set for CS2? Why? Because you need 570 instead of 540 FPS in that game? It's not a priority.
I like to get fragged by guys with aimbots at like that much more frames, you know?
I need that half second of extra latency. So you eliminate games that are not going to stress the GPU and are not priorities for Nvidia. What were the priorities? Cyberpunk, Indiana Jones, Wukong, Alan Wake 2, Star Wars Outlaws. You take the heavy hitter games And those are where the priority's at. And those are what got the driver updates first.
And also boosting, and oh man, I can't believe I'm about to say this. Holy crap. Also, your local AI performance is really important, because one day Nvidia has a vision, right? Where I'm going with that is Nvidia, they say that they have a vision where AI is running locally on the GPU alongside the game, and you have more interactive. I'm sure you've done the same tech demo that I've done,
Yep.
where you get to talk to the characters and you try and say mean things and bully them into doing stuff. I think the last time I got to play that, I asked the PR person if they could close their ears for a second. I wanted to see what would happen if I said some stuff.
Just start slinging slurs.
Just horrible things. And it's the concept is amazing. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I think, they've got a vision for that, and that'll be cool to see where it goes to that effect, right? That they're putting such an emphasis on local AI. It's not all about take your job, give you a chat bot on your thing. Like there's other entertainment aspects.
Yeah, that's only the first half of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, AI performance, I think, is going to continue to be important, at least the way in which it's being implemented in games right now, which is things like DLSS. It's things like hybrid ray tracing and path tracing, because we are still in a hybrid system. We're not doing anything resembling actual path tracing, where you don't even render a 3D object, but we are rendering a 3D scene, casting rays and paths at it, having per object lighting, and then rendering those effects onto the 3D landscape that we've created. And I went over a lot of the artifacts of that in my 5090 video, if you guys didn't see that. But the upscaler is definitely going to be important moving forward. And DLSS 4 has gotten to a point where I said, at this point, turn it on, because the things that are the little artifacts and the little tells are so insignificant when you're just playing the game. You will not notice them unless you're pixel peeping. The artifacts are basically invisible at this point. And so,
which, if you're having fun playing the game, you're not going to be pixel peeping.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And it's not like the first version of DLSS, which, oh my God, was awful. Playing one of the ones that I always remember doing is playing Horizon Zero Dawn, and when you enabled DLSS, whenever Aloy moved, there was a halo around her character, especially around the hair, and like on a 27-inch monitor, it was like 1/8 of an inch, just like this halo. And then when you stopped moving, it would vanish, and then you moved again and it would halo again. It's like, no, it's not what that should look like. But yeah,
I feel like there was a Far Cry, maybe 5 at the time, that had similar weird stuff, especially if you were trying to be real sneaky and tactical. It was it might have been a Rainbow Six or something, where it was like it was just a lot of jungle, a lot of foliage and stuff. And I remember being like, this game looks like trash. And I went to the Steam page, and like the top review said, just disable DLSS, you'll be okay.
Yeah.
Like, it was that prevalently bad.
So, but no, at this point, yes, it is dedicated hardware on your GPU. You are paying for it, but it does result in essentially free performance, because there's no such thing as a non-RTX card, at least as far as Nvidia is concerned. And so turn it on. It's a good setting. It does work well. Frame gen, love it or hate it.
Until it doesn't.
Yeah, until it doesn't. Frame gen, love it or hate it. It's probably here. There are upsides. There are also significant downsides. And I talked some about that. I don't want to kind of rehash that here. But performance-wise, 30%, I was a little underwhelmed. But they put so much energy into the tech to make the 5000 series more efficient, especially at the things that they're specifically targeting. That is the DLSS super sampling, that is the ray tracing and path tracing effects, that is, all of the things that they're trying to bring to games to make the games visually better, to enable game development to be easier, and enable game devs to tell better stories. And I liked all of that. It's not perfect yet, but that's what a lot of this generation is. I also don't always agree with the only good thing about a graphics card is frames go burr. Like, there's so much more to playing a game than the counter in the top corner. And while that's a great way to measure performance, did it tell the whole story of this card? And like I said in the review, I'm not blowing smoke up Nvidia's ass. This is really truly the way Nvidia should be focusing on how they do lighting and upscaling, because that does result in better gameplay.
And there's other aspects, as you said, too, other than just games, right? Like, again, AI is one of those examples. Also, if you do graphical design, video rendering, all that sort of stuff, there's many different ways to skin this cat on how to compare things gen to gen. And you're right, bigger number go burr is a horrible way to compare just about anything, unless it's, world record computational speeds. I'm sure none of those are still standing. But it's it's been fun for me, kind of, and for the audience's reference, I don't have these cards and I haven't tested them. I'm not doing that anymore. The watching this whole thing unfold and then seeing your take and Wendell's take and some of the other guys that have released videos and we've had some discussions about it. It's been like, like, this is same thing, different generation. Same thing happened roughly around the 40 series. I mean, the 40 series was a pretty respectable jump as well. But there was a lot of other stuff going on.
Ampere and 4000 in particular were significant architectural jumps as far as efficiency, as far as performance goes, and especially performance per watt. People love to hate the 3000 series, but had it launched at a reasonable price, which it was supposed to, we just never got 3000 series at a reasonable price because of the whole crypto mining thing. So 3000 will forever be tainted because of that.
I don't think I ever owned a 3000 card, actually. Like, personally.
A lot of people hate the 3000 cards until you remind them that the 3000 cards are 80% faster than Turing. And they're like, oh, well, I didn't realize that. Well, they were, $1,700. It's like, no, they were supposed to be $799. It's just we had to buy them for $1,700.
And then that unfortunately gave Jensen the idea that he could sell cards for that price.
And here we are today. Right. And so, but looking at the 5080, and I quoted eTechnics in the 5090 review. I'm going to do that again here. Link to Andy's article over at eTechnics is down below. Actually, Peter wrote this one. Hi, Peter. eTechnics. I've been really liking their benchmarking for a really long time. And they're great people. They're some of the first reviewers I met in the space when I started doing this. I met them at CES 2018. So that was I've known them a very, very long time. They did 1440, they did 1080p, 1440, and 4K benchmarks, and these ones right here are strictly rasterized. These are not ray tracing. These are not DLSS. These are just traditional DX12 and Vulkan rendering. And obviously at 1080p, we're running into some serious bottlenecks. The percentages are within 5% of each other, even at the top of this chart. The 5080, 297 FPS to 219 FPS on the 5090. And we're within 2% of each other on the 1% lows. There's something else going on here than just, the 5080 sucks, right? Well, yeah, we're at 1080p. We're running into a litany of limitations. Let's go to 1440p. Here we see the 5080 beats the 4080. By about 12%, 13%. And about 10% better in the 1% lows. Is 12% the margin that we were looking for? Absolutely not. Like I said, CUDA efficiency base, I was hoping for 40 to 50% on this generation, but that's just not where we're getting here. Well, let's move on to 4K. Here's the 5080 and here's the 4080. I think the 4080 Super is a little disingenuous to compare because we're comparing launch products, not products that are only a year old, although the 4080 Super is technically $999, where the 4080 was $1,200. There's something to be said about that as well, but 163 to 145. So again, a little bit larger jump, closer to 15% at 4K, but still not great. It's a stair step. It's not a leap. And people wanted a leap. So yeah, like rasterized performance, 12, maybe 15%, depending on what you're gaming at. As low as 4% if you're at 1080p, although I doubt anyone, anywhere, spending $1,000 on a GPU is playing at 1080p. And if you are, you're stupid.
You know what? I'm just noticing, looking at this, because I didn't have time to catch this before the stream, but I told you right before we got on here how much I love my 7900 GRE.
Yeah.
Look what's coming in at the top, or the lower is better.
Oh, yeah.
On just almost every one of these. It's a fantastic card for the price.
Yeah. Yeah, 103 FPS. And is anyone complaining about 103 frames per second at 4K?
I don't know.
178 at 1440p.
Yeah.
1440p,
I mean, if you're
ultra settings, you're maxing out every 144 hertz monitor. 148 1% lows.
Yeah.
On that
card. I was just about to say, if you've got a nice 144 4K monitor, a 7900 XTX or 7900 GRE is just as valid of an option than going out and paying used car money for a GPU.
I will even go one further than that. Let's say you bought a 7900 GRE or any GPU on this chart.
Yeah.
You probably also bought a 1440p 144 hertz monitor, which means you don't need to upgrade if you own any GPU on this chart.
Yeah.
Top to bottom. The bottom card is the 4070, who people love to hate. 166 FPS, 1440p ultra settings, 131 average 1% low. At its lowest point, it's losing 13 frames to your monitor, and if you have adaptive sync turned on, it's not even losing that. So you don't need it. You don't need to upgrade. But if we go over and we look at ray tracing, who again, people love to hate. I don't want to turn it on. It's just lowers my performance for no reason, right? Well, here we get the 5080 coming in at 127 FPS and the 4080 coming in at 121 FPS. So about 5-6% between the two, and about the same margin between the 1% low. But again, that's at 1080p. Who's buying a $1,000 card and playing at 1080p? 1440, 5080 is getting 90 FPS, which is really funny because according to their chart, it's only about 25 FPS lower than their 1080p marks. Again, about 5% different from the 4080. And then we scroll down. Here's the 5080. Here's the 4080. Again, 5-6%. This card sucks. Why did Nvidia even release this? It belongs in the trash.
But my frames.
But my frames. They're taking advantage of us.
Did you already have pulled up the cost per frame page?
I did not.
To discuss that? That's where things get interesting.
Cost per frame. Here we go.
Yeah.
We'll just look at the 4K because I...
Or 1440, but whatever.
Yeah. We'll look at 1440. There we go.
Yeah. That's where in my opinion, that's where things get interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. $3.98 per frame. It's among the lowest on this list. But it also shouldn't exist, right? Because Nvidia's just taking our money.
I guess.
Here's the deal.
Terrible hot takes from the internet. Jeff and Jordan.
Here's the deal with a lot of people who are hardware enthusiasts, which are the people who watch the day one reviews, who get onto Reddit, who get onto the social medias, and clamor that this card is a waste of silicon and I'd rather just buy a 4080 and I can't believe Nvidia waited 2 years and then this is what they release and things like that. If you have a GPU on this chart, none of the news in the last 2 weeks is for you because it doesn't matter to you. Because for the most part, if you bought a GPU in the last 2-3 years, you're probably not in the market for a new GPU, especially if you spent $800 plus on a GPU. It's not for you. Which means comparisons to the previous generation are kind of a moot point.
I got a question from a buddy I helped build a computer within the last year. He went with the 7900 XTX. Availability and pricing reasons, as well as AMD loyalty. It's like, hey, what do you think? Should I look at the 5090, 5080? I'm like, don't even bother. You're not ready yet. It's not worth it. Unless you can get a significant amount of your money back on that resale, you don't need to upgrade. Yeah. There's nothing that's gained, which that speaks a little bit too to the game environment that we're in right now of kind of, what's the last thing that got released that you remember being like, holy crap, nothing can keep up with it?
Well, I mean, in recent memory, as far as gaming, Cyberpunk was the last one that, even when Cyberpunk was released, it was released in late 2020, basically alongside the RTX 3090. I think the RTX 3090 came out in November and Cyberpunk came out in December or something like that of 2020. And if you went 4K Ray Tracing Ultra, you got 35 frames per second on your $1,600, which you couldn't buy for $1,600, $2,200 RTX 3090.
That had been pre-mined on.
Right. You got 35 frames per second.
Yeah.
Now, if you enable DLSS, you got like 48, 55, somewhere around in there. It wasn't 60. And the lows were still dropping into the 20s. And the artifacting was awful on DLSS 2. And if you had anything less than a 3090, it was a slideshow at 4K.
Yeah. I think at the time that came out, my main system was Shelby from Tech Tangents has that GPU right now. I think it's a 2070. And slideshow.
Yeah.
I remember that. I was just like, I remember I bought it, downloaded it, put it in the Steam library, and then realized what was going on and said, well, this can go down over here in the collection for when I get a better GPU. I'll check it out.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what GPU did I have that was rocking in 2020. I remember I played Cyberpunk as soon as it came out. I think I was on a 2080. Yeah, in fact, I'm positive of it now that I think about it. I was on an RTX 2080.
I'm thinking I was on the 2070 because I don't think I would have given away a 2080.
I was on this card. I have it right next to me. I was on my Gigabyte RTX 2080. I was like, wait a second. That's within our reach.
I know I'm in my usual lab space, but for reasons I can't leave this chair.
Yeah.
Grabbing it.
Yeah.
GPUs. And it's not, I do have pants on. It's not because I don't have pants on.
He gets cold without his beard, so he's got to sit right next to his heater.
Yeah. Heated by all of the mountains of things. Do you want to talk about DeepSeek for a second?
Sure.
And that funness. Oops,
yeah.
I just accidentally middle click Chrome close.
I think to wrap up the 5080 talk, I think to wrap it up like real short, like, because we've been going for a little while now, and I don't think we've like finalized a point. Is the 5080 a generational leap from the 4080? I don't think so. But trending 15% improvement in rasterized and ray traced at higher resolutions, when we're not maxing out game engine limitations, and that's something I didn't even touch on, but I probably will when I do my full 5080 review. There are some game engines that have soft caps of how fast they can actually run, which is especially why at 1080p and you're running a 9800X 3D and a 5090, why CS2 caps out at 530 FPS. It's not because your CPU's at 100%. It's not because your GPU's at 100%. It's not because, it could be literal memory bandwidth issues. It could be it could be the game engine is tied to certain timings and cannot exceed a certain limit before it starts breaking the code. Red Dead Redemption 2 and GTA 5 are great examples of this. They cap out at about 185 or 190 FPS. You cannot get beyond that mark without the game starting to break. I know. Look at Skyrim and Fallout 4, where physics are tied to the frame rate. You can run at 60 FPS in
Kerbal
Skyrim.
Space Program.
Kerbal Space Program, right? There are game engines.
I'm still salty about KSP too.
Oh, so am I. Yeah. But game engines, like everything else that we run, sometimes have limitations where they can't go burr any faster. And we've seen two generational leaps in a row with Ampere doubling up Turing and Ada doubling up Ampere. That when we only go up 30%, we're going, well, what the crap? Where's my extra performance? And then we're benchmarking it, and this is not to call out any reviewer, but I see a lot of people still benchmarking games from 6 and 7 and 8 years ago. And while those are still valid to find out how the games run,
it's 100% valid to show how it's going to work on the new stuff.
Right, totally.
Is that the best way to showcase the raw computational performance?
Exactly.
Available. It would be like ignoring AVX 512 performance on a Zen 5 CPU or something like that. I don't know who.
Valid point.
Okay, I won't bring that up again. I will.
But yeah, testing performance, you do have to test everything that you would run, but it's also going to show differences in things that newer APIs, newer tech, newer things like that. And so, are we going to see a bigger difference in DLSS 4 performance versus 4000? Yes, it's going to be disparagingly larger than the 30% gap of the 5090 and the 15% gap of the 5080. Because it's a newer tech and it's optimized for the newer hardware. Is that going to show up in your averages? Probably not. But it is an advantage to the card that's not going to show up because frames didn't go burr.
Right.
It's kind of why I wanted to focus in my review on what does this mean graphically and storytelling and development-wise for gameplay on the 5090 is we knew it was going to be the fastest card ever. What does it look like to you? If you go out and you buy this card, what does it mean?
And I think as a reviewer, that's kind of always what you're striving to help, right? Mm-hmm. Without getting too far into the weeds of that whole debacle that happened last week. At the end of the day, as reviewers, you're just trying to communicate. And for you, in your case, it's to your audience who obviously watches for some reason or another, personal or preference or anything. Or, maybe we're just some cool dudes that like to hang out and talk about computers.
Right.
But just trying to share what that means it's hard, right? Yeah. You don't just wake up and go, I know exactly what a 5080 means to all of the people on the planet,
and trying to provide consumer advice for where to spend your money and what's the smart buy if you're building a PC. I do bring my own experience and my own biases with that. And as I said in my review, I don't have 5090 money right now. I probably
Right.
wouldn't buy a 5090 unless I genuinely needed it for, let's say, decoding multiple 422 streams for video editing. But I shoot in 420. And so the new decoder doesn't make one bit of difference to my professional workflow. But if you are interested in the 5090, here's some of the benefits that you're going to get from it. And here's why it would make a difference beyond, I could play this game at 300 FPS. How's it going to look? Is it going to look dramatically different than other cards you've played on before? And the answer was yes, and so that's what I focused on, because that's the question I wanted to answer. Reviews are more than about numbers.
Yeah. You said you're looping your 5070 and 5080 together?
The 25080s. I've got a 5080 Founders, and then I've got another AIB coming in. And so I'm going to loop those in together.
Okay. The one question that I can't wait to see answered is the 5070 is as good as the 4090.
It's a no.
I obviously.
I
just can't wait to see where that came from. I want to read the fine print.
At the announcement, when Jensen made that declaration at the announcement that 5070 will have 4090 level performance for $550. Based on the CUDA numbers that I had crunched before, comparing Blackwell to Ada, I went, depending on the raw specs of this card, it's possible. It's pushing. And let's say we're not including frame gen, but we do include DLSS, and we include DLSS 4, and it's good enough where you turn it on, and that has, for the most part, been the case. Turn on DLSS 4, it looks freaking amazing, and you get more performance for less overhead. Let's say at 4K with DLSS 4 enabled, the 4070 had the right amount of CUDA cores to be able to compete with the 59 or 4090. I could see that. I could see a glimmer of, and they've made this proclamation before. They made it with the 4070 Super being equal to the 3090, and within 2% of my testing, yes, that was the case. And so I had precedent to say, I've done the numbers, and I've seen this claim before, and it wound up being true. I'm a believer until disproven.
Right.
And then I did my 5090 review, and I went, it's not looking good.
Nope.
It's not looking good.
Nope.
And I'm big enough to admit when I was wrong. Without frame gen, there's no freaking way.
Yeah.
And with frame gen, it's going to be an awful experience.
It would be cool, though.
It would be very cool.
Yeah. I would love nothing more than for them to put out a generational leap that the previous flagship can now be had for $500, or flagship level performance had for $500.
I mean, that's what we got with the 4070 Super was $599 equals the 3090.
Right. It's good for everybody.
Yeah. Yep. But now we know the 5080 doesn't even equal the 4090. I think that's the most disappointing thing is CUDA and rasterization and ray tracing performance. You didn't even match the previous flagship from your sub flagship part from your tier 2 part.
Yeah,
that's the most disappointing thing to me about this release. Is we didn't even go up one step.
Well, now I know I have time to save up for slightly newer used car money levels of GPU for the next generation. Right?
There you go. Well, we do know somewhere out there is a 24,500 CUDA core variant of the 5090 AD10 or GB102 die. There have been references to it. I talked about it last week on the show. There have been some hardware info or GPU-Z instances of a 24,576 CUDA core or something like that versus the 21,800 on the 5090. So whether that's a new Quadro Tesla, workstation style card, or a straight up 5090 Ti, 5090 Super, whatever they call. Who knows? But we've seen some references to it. Maybe that one will only be 3,000.
Yeah. Maybe they'll finally bring back the 8,000 tier cards.
That would be nice. Because, it has been a little lackluster looking over at the 3090 and going like, you're still faster than an Ada 6000, and that pisses me off.
Yep. I think we'll see a big push toward more VRAM.
Yeah.
In this next gen. That's proving beyond everything else to be some of the most necessary stuff in the professional workload.
Yep. We did get a...
She can't...
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, Veronica, I saw her little check mark. And I can't wait to find one at Free Geek in a few years. Let me know. I'll drive down and help you pull it.
Right.
Super chat.
We did get a super chat. Isaac, thank you so much for the $10. I need to put my 3080 in my second PC for new golf sim software. I was really hoping the 5080 would be a jump over the 4080, and it's not. Expected 4090 performance, instead it's barely better. Yeah. Like I said, I think we're all a little disappointed. But at the same time, it's hard to, as a reviewer even... I don't feel any anger or how dare you, Nvidia, or anything like that. And I know a lot of people want me to, but I like comparing the tech and consumer computer space to the car space, because how long did it take the Subaru BRZ to go from 202 to 206 to 210 horsepower? And then finally we got a 272 horsepower last year. And people are going, what the hell took you so long? Yeah. Machining tolerances on a brand new boxer engine that hadn't been used in any platform before. All the different things that go into development. They delivered what they thought would be reliable and repeatable and serviceable and things like that. And as a company, you can only release once you have a marketable and retailable product. And the reason we didn't get a die shrink at TSMC this time was I don't think Nvidia has a retailable and repeatable process for their next chip yet. So, yes, this is a stair step to Ada Lovelace. And that's where we're at. Of course, we always want more. Nvidia, why don't you put a turbo on that bitch? Do you realize how ridiculous it is when you add car culture to computing culture?
Okay,
how ridiculous these comments sound.
The problem is you've just completely thrown my brain straight into car culture, because that's like I spent half my day dealing with it. And so I'm shopping for like a beater car, right? I'm looking at like Carvana, and I realized that go right now and look for like a 2016, 2015 Chrysler 200S with the V6, 300 horsepower, all-wheel drive. Eat my dust, Subaru. Let's go.
Yeah.
You can get these things for like 15 grand.
Yeah.
Fairly moderate mileage. If you pay a little more, you can get really low mileage.
Yeah, you can get like 50,000, 60,000. Yeah.
13,000 miles right now. One for $18,900, and they'll give you a freaking warranty on it for like 3 years,
dude.
I've been looking just like, I'm like, I just need like a beater car that I don't care about, because like my truck's too nice to like really do anything with.
Yeah.
And and I was like, holy crap, like this thing, like this is cheap. I've got one of the GM 6.2 V8s that NISTA just opened an investigation for Conrod bearings on.
Yep.
And then GM, there was a regular car reviews just did a report on the privacy stuff.
I watched the Roman report this morning. Yeah.
I bought mine post when they stopped selling your data, so I didn't get caught up in that. My previous newest car that I owned was a 2007, so
Yeah.
it didn't really affect me. And I started looking into it, and I was like, "Holy crap!" So I'm sitting here, and I'm worried about my con rods, and I'm worried about my lifters collapsing, and I'm like, "Okay, what do I do?" I was like, "All right, I got a warranty. I'm good. I'll just, I'll just won't worry about it. I'll just bring a couple beers along for the drive and just relax." That, for legal purposes, that is 100% joke chat. I do not drink and drive. That was 100% a joke. Um,
I know where you
but
live,
yeah,
so I
like,
was about 50-50 on that one.
yeah, 100% a joke. Um, but yeah, like, it's crazy with new cars. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff. There's a lot of cool tech. And there's a lot of things happening
Yeah.
with it. But it gets really, like, you're right. It gets to the same mentality of what are we doing?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's one more horsepower this year though.
Right. And
Yeah.
some years you get 70 extra horsepower in the engine, and it's like, all
Mm-hmm.
right, they finally did something, right? No, the R&D that's been working for like 12 years in the background on that particular platform, yes, they finally realized a retailable,
Yeah.
repeatable, reliable thing that they could sell. This year Nvidia didn't have that yet, but they also had
Right.
new tech that they introduced. We did get bumps in especially on the AI processing side of things, on the
Mm-hmm.
tensor and the RT cores. We got major bumps in that, and now the biggest differences that I
Intel
saw were in games like Cyberpunk and Indiana Jones, where we're using hybrid path tracing.
Intel did a really good job describing that cycle, at least within their own business, with the TikTok
TikTok,
model,
right?
which uh, I think somebody killed it last year, a year before, or something like that. I wouldn't, and I mean, look how that worked out. But
Well, they they
uh,
they technically killed it with Haswell when they couldn't get past 14 nanometer.
yeah, but that kind of set the kind of, they explained how it works. They put a fun name to it,
Mm-hmm.
and then it really showed, like, hey, here's how the kind of things. Now Nvidia probably on something slightly different development wise, but you're right, it's just like the thing where you don't see necessarily the years and years of development happening behind the scenes
Yeah.
before.
We said the same
So
thing when Turing came out, and it was only 30% faster than Pascal, and we're like, well, this is just
yeah,
a failed launch. Like, we got a die shrink, but no benefit from it, and you threw on the server crap that we don't need. What's ray tracing? Why do I need it? And then Ampere came out, and you go, oh, that was what you wanted to release. And we got some of that with Volta, but only on the server end
mm,
of things. And we knew how good Volta was. And then we got the RT and the Tensor along with Volta, and it came together and it became Ampere, and it was twice as fast.
yeah,
Oh, I see what you were aiming for now. We're on a talk cycle right now. And that's
mm-hmm,
okay. It's okay.
yeah, it's not a big deal.
Because if you had a 4080, you're an idiot if you go buy a 5080. If it
Yeah,
was even on your radar, you're an
unless
idiot.
you're building another machine and you just need another GPU,
Right.
then buy the 5080.
If you were looking to upgrade, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Is it underwhelming? Sure. But you know what? People who are buying a $1,000 graphics card for the first time, or building a PC today when they don't already have a 4080, or dare I say even a 3080, today they're getting between 15 and 20% better performance at 4K and with ray tracing for $1,000 than they did yesterday. And that's not a bad
Mm-hmm.
thing. Jeff, is your
Trying to
camera set
find.
to log? No, my camera is set to Rec 709, so I have to do as little color correction as possible.
My camera is set to crappy webcam that I had in my basement,
There you go.
for those curious.
And you've already shouted out Veronica, but I'll shout out Veronica too. Veronica's in chat. And Adam Patrick Murray from PC World is also in chat.
Adam, I'll fight you for that title.
Jeff's biggest fan. Well, it depends on who brings me the better beer. How's that? I'll make you guys fight for it. Where I benefit. I'm going to open my second beer, and then we're finally going to dive into DeepSeek.
Oh boy.
This one I saw in the store, and again, I'm like, well, that has to go in my cart, simply because of the price. I had to know if it was good or bad. This is from Combs, Komes. This is the Combs Imperial Stout, 12%.
Oh,
This bottle was $4.
interesting.
I don't know if it was on clearance. I've never heard of Combs before. This is imported from Poland. So I don't know if they had some and then they like wanted to sell them off or what the deal was, but I got this bottle for $4. I also have from Combs a bottle of barrel-aged barley wine that I got for $4 as well. That's also 12%.
25 cents a percent.
That's yeah.
How do you argue with that?
Yeah. So there we go.
That looks thick.
Not quite as thick as some other stouts that I've seen. I'm imagining this is going to be a little bit boozy. Where sometimes when you get over that 10-12% mark, the beer really thickens up and it sweetens up, and you end up with way more sweet and much less bite. My head dissipated almost immediately, which tells me there's a lot of carbonation. The beer's kind of thin, and I'm gonna get some booze. But that's okay. Sometimes that's a good thing. Anyway, let's talk the Nvidia tumble in this week.
Oh no.
Nvidia.
Once you think of the shareholders.
When I think of the shareholders. Nvidia in early trading on Monday and then through Wednesday shed almost 15% of its global value, which is equivalent to about $600 billion with a B, in the largest single day loss for any company in history. And this is all precipitated by an announcement that happened about 3 weeks ago and then was
shoved into the main media.
Shoved into the main media over the weekend. Really, I think on Saturday, I started seeing this new AI thing has the potential to dethrone Nvidia. And then by Monday morning, it's like, where did all of our money go?
Well, before you start feeling too bad about the $500 billion, there's the other $3 trillion that they're still worth.
They're going to be okay. They're going to be fine. Yeah. Yeah, Jensen might have to sell his alligator jacket for a different leather jacket, maybe an aardvark or something.
If you look at it still as of right now over this time last year, it's still up 98%.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be okay.
They're going to be okay. Right. So the big news, obviously, for investors is that Nvidia seemingly hard crashed. Like 600 billion is a lot to just vanish, right? But why did this happen? What is DeepSeek, and what caused the Nvidia sell-off? Now, before we get into this is not financial advice. I don't even do stocks.
I wonder if no.
If I have a little sympathy, you'll have to forgive me.
Yeah. If you're from Wall Street, now's the time to leave the chat.
Right, exactly. Anyway, let's start with Nvidia. The reason they were so valuable is because they had the hot ticket thing that everyone wants in their products right now, which is AI. Nvidia is the machine right now that makes AI happen. I know there's other machines that are capable of it, not to the level that Nvidia is, though.
In the gold rush, Nvidia is selling the shovels and pickaxes.
That's exactly right. Yeah, they've got the Boomer Town. It's 1849 all over again.
Yep.
they're the ones owning the town and owning the mines, and you're sleeping with in their beds, you're renting their shops, this is what it is. And all the while, we're hearing from Nvidia as well as other big names in the AI space: OpenAI, Microsoft, Meta, X, etc., etc. We need literal trillions of dollars invested to make AI possible. It's a loaded statement. AI possible means shoving a chatbot into everything to eventually replace workers, which is where they're going to save the trillions of dollars. But that's a story for another day. We need trillions of dollars.
I don't want to get that
investment.
nihilistic with it tonight.
I don't either. I touched it, and now we don't. And now we can ignore it.
Can we skip to the Westworld robots? Wait, no, we were horrible to those too. Oh God.
Okay, but if this is 1849, who's building the railroad? Like,
anyways, moving on.
Anyway,
DeepSeek has come out.
DeepSeek has come out
with a storm.
Yes.
Of headlines, some more truthful than others.
Right. There has been a lot of reporting. There's been a fair amount of misreporting or simply misunderstanding the information that's being presented. It's being repeated ad nauseum of what actually this was and why it's a big deal and why investors are now a little leery of Nvidia. I like, someone said it in chat, I think it was Zach, severe market overreaction based purely on headlines. And that's definitely a big piece of this, is people seeing a new thing that's 100 times more efficient burst onto the scene and going, oh, we're on the wrong ship.
We're talking AI.
Yeah, we're talking AI. Break the wine out.
It's time for the wine. Yeah, overcorrection, misunderstanding, misinterpretation.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't seen it, my dear best friend in the entire world, Dr. Ian Cutress, had a wonderful podcast today.
Yes.
With my really good friend George Kozma from Chips and Cheese. They had another guest. I'm sorry I don't remember her name. She was quite brilliant though.
Yes.
I was listening. I was not watching, but they had a very good podcast where they covered a lot of very valid points.
Yes.
So if you haven't seen that, put that on your playlist for tomorrow.
Tech Potato.
What they Tech Potato. What they did, and I share a lot of the same views. What happened with DeepSeek was novel, in the sense that they implemented a lot of very well-known efficiency and cost reduction that has been known about, but maybe not necessarily brought together in the same way. And
or even plausible to implement with current models that are on the market right now.
Right. They did some stuff with the network. They did some stuff with the precision. I think it was FP8, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was worth of $500 billion of correction on the market. Outside of the headline was Nvidia wants to sell this to you for $1 trillion and they're going to sell it to you for $8. It's like, dude, that's not how this works. Like,
or more accurately, they said $6 million. It took $6 million to train DeepSeek R1, which electricity costs. Yes. It costs $6 million to train this model. That doesn't go into development. That doesn't go into all the other things. However, it'd be selling it short if we didn't say it's a bit of a novel approach to the way NVIDIA's been doing it, which is based on their CUDA API, based on CUDA cores and the high-level language that CUDA is. Ian Cutress put it best. He has a tweet that's out there, and I'm still going to call it a tweet. Don't
give him that respect.
Well, no, I'm dead naming it. Twitter is the only thing I will ever dead name.
That's what I'm saying. Don't give him that respect.
Right. Um, in a tweet, Ian Cuttress said something to the effect of the way that AI has been trained to this point has been essentially based on CUDA. Has been a high-level programming language where they are using NVIDIA's APIs to program their graphics cards to run through certain processes and run certain calculations. DeepSeek is a little bit different because they ran what's called PXT, which is it's not
PTX.
or PTX, excuse me. It's not completely bare metal programming, but it is near assembly level programming. And the best analogy we always have in the gaming space is probably Roller Coaster Tycoon, which was written basically entirely in assembly, which is why a 486 from 1996 could keep track of 8,000 individual guests with stats and run efficiently. That's why this particular training model was so efficient, on top of some other optimizations that they've made with core-to-core communication over networking, with memory latency issues, and a whole bunch of other things. They've also implemented compression into the system, which hasn't traditionally worked with OpenAI and other similar GPT models. And so some really novel approaches to thinking outside the box to do a lot more with a lot less. To say this is a budget solution, it still took 50,000 NVIDIA H800 GPUs, 2.3 million hours.
For those playing along at home, those aren't cheap. They're more expensive than a 5090.
Right. To train this model. And so the electrical cost of training this model was about $6 million, 5.58 or whatever the number was. And the question is NVIDIA sunk? Because the easy answer to that is no. Because even if something comes out that's more efficient than what NVIDIA has been doing right now, or than what OpenAI or Meta or Microsoft or Google or whoever is doing right now, that means NVIDIA can sell the same number of GPUs and run them 10 times more efficiently. And companies already have that budgeted, so yeah, why wouldn't we want 10 times the efficiency increase? But
NVIDIA already knows that that's a thing, and we've seen that for quite a while with their MLPerf submissions.
Correct.
Setting aside the validity, the test is the test, and they've eked out performance in the code, and you can see this in unofficial and official submissions by software refinement. They're improving CUDA, and I think the easiest way that I can at least interpret it and then re-explain it to the audience is it's like NVIDIA went out on a coding binge and made all this stuff, and they're realizing oh, hey, this isn't optimized over here. I can make this more optimized, and they fix it, and then they find another one, and it's kind of a game of whack-a-mole. NVIDIA is still doing that with CUDA, and CUDA does, in a sense, encapsulate, maybe not fully encapsulate, but is alongside PTX, right? There's still the ability to do that. It's a slightly higher level programming language. The novel approach of this was they optimized the training by using PTX, and that is extremely, again, Roller Coaster Tycoon levels of complicated.
Super
and you
impressive.
are going to get,
especially for
the
a
guy
company
that knows how to do that is insanely smart, and they don't exist.
Especially
everywhere.
For a company that's only existed for literally 14 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every company, every company that needs AI for something, whatever that may be, is not going to be able to find a PTX developer.
Right.
It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, there's two of them, and one of them works for this company over here.
The other one works at NVIDIA.
The other one works at NVIDIA, right. So some of the statements of, DeepSeek can do for 6 million what NVIDIA promised for 3 trillion. No, they can't.
You still need DGXs to run this stuff on.
Right.
That model, that if you interact on the website, I do encourage everyone to use maybe an obscured email address to go sign up for it. That's what I did.
Just
It was fun to mess around with. We can talk about the fun that I had with it.
I would
But
like to see some of your results because you teased those earlier, and yeah.
yeah, I wish there was an easier way to share the chat over. Um, it's an interesting thing, and I think it was misinterpreted by the market
Mm-hmm.
when it hit the headlines in a sensationalist way,
Yeah.
and without getting into a very deep geopolitical discussion and getting my tinfoil hat on, getting my server side chassis hat on.
Yeah, yeah.
It's very, very intriguing. And if you
Oh no.
look at Nancy Pelosi's recent trade. She had no idea this was coming.
None at all.
None at all. She just bought last week. Um it's yeah, it's
She
really
sold
cool.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah. No, she bought calls last week on Nvidia.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's your financial advice.
Just follow Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah.
Nancy Pelosi's husband, I guess, sold Nvidia 2 weeks ago. Sold a
Did
lot
he?
2 weeks ago. Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Not to get political.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's political to say insider trading should be completely illegal.
If Martha Stewart can go to prison for it, so too should Nancy Pelosi. So too should any other senator that partakes.
Anyone. But
this is a bipartisan FU to anyone listening.
100%. To put it back on track, the other thing that's really interesting if you go play with it is it thinks it lives in like October of 2023.
Yeah.
If you ask it what day it is, I was having a good time. I wish I'm going to try and DM you the link to this chat, Jeff,
sure.
And if you can pull
it
up.
I'll see if I can pull it up.
It's got the key on it and everything. I don't know. I haven't tried this yet.
It takes me to a sign-in screen.
Yeah. I assumed that. But what if you sign in?
I haven't set up a sign-in yet.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I can summarize it pretty easily for chat. For those that don't know, I have, along with my former colleagues, calculated the largest number of consecutive digits of pi to over 202 trillion digits.
Yes.
I'm well versed in the calculation of it, how the application works, the calculation of it. I wanted to play around, and the first thing that I asked, and you can do this too, the first thing I asked it was, what's the largest known digit of pi? And it quoted something like 100 trillion digits, which is several years out of date. I've not only beat that, but superseded that record twice.
Yeah.
And then I asked it if it could calculate me 100 digits of pi. It took it 203 seconds to think about it. And then it wrote itself a Python program and 100% accuracy outputted the first 100 digits of pi from said Python program. It's fairly well written. It's about as good as I think I could do it in Python. Not the ideal way to do large numbers, though.
Right.
100 digits, sure. Maybe 200, 300, 400. You could probably get away with it for a while. But those converging sums the series convergence starts to really get out of hand really fast.
Is there a reason you needed how much SSD storage to make that work?
A couple petabytes. So it gave me the 100 digits. Ben, if you guys come to the after show in the Discord, I can walk you through this whole thing on the screen share. So on the I then asked it, after it gave me the 100, to give it 1 billion, just to see what it would try and do.
Yeah.
It then thought for 32 seconds, and it said, that's a huge feat. Again, I'm summarizing a lot of it here. It never once suggested to me to use Y Cruncher, which for those of you who do benchmarks, 1 billion is nothing.
Yeah.
I can do it on this crappy laptop in 30 seconds that I'm streaming on.
Yeah.
It's really not a thing. So I replied to it. It's like, oh, this is no small feat. Where did it gave me a time or something. I thought it said it's computational with the exact decimal conclusion. Theoretically, the 1 billionth digit of pi exists and can be computed, but practically it requires supercomputing resources based on existing records. I said, that's very incorrect. The 1 billionth digit can easily be calculated along with all preceding digits and output to a text file on disk on a 3-year-old laptop in less than 30 seconds. It didn't like that.
Yeah.
I can see its thought process, which is the cool part. This thing is so freaking like convinced that it's right. It's something with the weights that it doesn't like taking user feedback saying, no, that's not quite right. And
I love how you can see the
thing.
Real-time gaslighting. That's
yes. It's like 2 or 3. It's like at first it starts in it's confused. At first it's like, wait, he might be confused, and then it gets into, oh, maybe he's talking about a different method, and then it brings up Y Cruncher for the first time in its thought process, and then it brings up the BBP hexadecimal formula, but not decimal. And it's like, wait, but he didn't say anything about hex. And then thoughts finish, and it proceeds to give me three bullet points with probably 4 sub bullet points each, explaining to me how I have misconceptions about calculating pi. And then it gave me a practical demonstration and says, compute 1 billion digits, 10 to 30 minutes. So I said, okay, you're confidently incorrect. Here's proof, and sent it a screenshot where I had at that moment in time downloaded Y Cruncher, calculated 1 billion in the amount of time it took it to write that, calculated the 1 billion digits, uploaded the screenshot proof, and then it proceeded to call me a liar because today is not January 29th, 2025. Today is October, I think it's 23rd. I lost my spot. It proceeded to confidently call me a liar and I'm manipulating the log files. And then, I'm not kidding you, there's a whole section here that says why your assertion is misleading. Hardware misrepresentation. Labeling an Intel Xeon workstation with 64 gigs of RAM as a 3-year-old laptop is factually incorrect. No, it's not. I'm talking on it right now, right here. Date fabrication. The 2025 timestamp invalidates the log's authenticity. And then algorithm optimizations. It said, well, Y Cruncher's performance relies on extreme optimizations. Using implementations like Python, unavailable in generic implementations like Python code discussed earlier. And I was like, yes, it did call me a time traveler. Someone I just saw that pop
Jordan,
up.
not only are you gaslighting me, you're from the future, and I don't like it.
Well, so I asked it for what date it is today. That's where I just, because it was saying October 30th, 2023 in the pre-thinking, and then I finally got it to tell me the current date is October 30th, 2023.
Interesting.
And then I didn't ask it anything else. My prompt was, what is the date today? The current date is October 30th, 2023. New paragraph. Slamming me for modifying and faking a log file to say it's January of 2025. And if you go back to its thought process, it's like, I think that user is trying to trick me. This is all anecdotal, right? And so like I go back and forth with it. I'll share this. I wish I could share the whole thing with the link because it's really funny.
Yeah.
But it was so convinced. So then I set my system clock back to June of 2023, reran the Y Cruncher test, uploaded the screenshot, and it was like, now I think you're faking it because you have a very similar result from 2 separate days. Like, what the hell is going on here? This thing is full on gaslighting me. So So then it says, if you really did it, give me the file with 1 billion digits. And I'm thinking to myself, anybody out there right now, think for a second, how big of a text file is 1 billion digits of pi?
Well, it's 1 billion bits.
Yeah, it's a gigabyte.
It's a pretty easy thing to calculate, right?
So at this point, I'm frustrated. So I said, so how the hell am I supposed to upload a 1 gigabyte file to you, smartass? And it didn't like that there. It starts in the thinking, you can see it's like, I need to address the user's frustration. They're clearly annoyed. And like quotes out that I called it a smartass. So it's anecdotal, but here's what I'm getting at, right? So this describes about 5 or 6 back and forths with a significant amount of time, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy how assertive the model is that it is correct. Where if you go to Chat GPT and try something different, Michael S, it is 1 gig. If you go back to Chat GPT, it's easier. It accepts the criticism and correction. And this is something that I praise OpenAI for is I do have a paid account with them. It remembers things if I correct it. And I'm like, hey, no, that's not right. This is the facts here. And it has a tendency to remember those. Now, whether or not those stay
Chat GPT had some awesome, confidently incorrect information about me at one point. Still doesn't have all my information because I'm just Jeff.
DeepSeek doesn't know who you are, but it knows kind of who I am. It can't spell my last name right. It spelled my last name. Where is it? Raney for some reason, but it perfectly described the last 2 years of my life.
Yeah.
But it said my name was Jordan Rainey.
Yeah. ChatGPT is aware of craft computing, but it said craft computing is ran by Jeff Geerling, who often does Raspberry Pi things. And someone said, I think you have the wrong Jeff. And it said, oh, right. Jeff Geerling runs Jeff Geerling, the YouTube channel. Craft computing is run by Jeff, who doesn't publicize his last name. And so it did correct itself and figure it out.
Because you don't say it in the video transcript.
I don't say it in the video transcript.
But in the trading.
And so it has no context for what my last name would be. And so it goes, well, of course, Jeff Geerling runs Craft Computing. Jeff Geerling's appeared on Craft Computing. That makes sense.
Yeah. His name's also Jeff. There's just too many Jeffs, man.
Right.
I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, it didn't know how to differentiate one from the other, and so it associated him with me. But then it's like, well, wait, no, that's not him. It goes, oh, I guess Jeff from Craft Computing doesn't publicize his last name. And so that was an interesting, kind of whoa moment. Was that you that did that, or was it someone else? Someone entered Craft Computing into Chat GPT and was asking questions.
I did it tonight in preparation for our thing. I asked it if it knew who I was, and I asked both DeepSeek and Chat GPT.
Yeah.
My Chat GPT is too skewed with my own data that it knows exactly
garbage
who
input.
I am. Yeah. Shut up, Jeff. But it okay,
Snippy.
so here's what it said. Here's what DeepSeek said about you. It said, Craft Computing is a tech-oriented YouTube channel that specializes in educational content related to home computing, server setups, networking, and DIY projects. Key topics include, and then went on to a whole bunch of stuff. But if you go back to its thought, okay, that's a pretty decent.
That's not bad.
Yeah, here's the problem. It has no idea who the hell you are.
Yeah.
If you go back through the thought process, and I think this is why this is important, why more people should expose this, is it said the thought process starts with, okay, so I need to find out about the YouTube channel Craft Computing. Let me start by recalling if I've heard of it before. Name sounds familiar, maybe related to tech or DIY projects. Let me think. Craft could imply crafting, but when combined with computing, it's probably tech related. So maybe computer builds, tutorials, and reviews. So it deduced it based on the name. So good job on your branding there, bud. Thumbs up. You,
Yes.
you got the AI, but it had no idea who the hell you were.
Well, what's
And,
really
and that's not, I'm not trying to
yeah.
like dig on
No,
you,
no, no,
but
not at all.
it's funny that it was able to put that together.
I don't mind that the
No,
AI
no.
doesn't know specifically who I am, but I love that my branding is so on point that it was able to deduce simply from my title that I gave the channel, because I've always said craft was not for craft beer, although that was a nice happy accident. Craft was
Yeah, sure.
uh, that's part of how I came up with the name. Was I wanted a hook for the channel, and so let's include beer. But I chose the name craft very specifically because of the definition of craft, which is built with care and intention. And I love that definition. And that's how I wanted to build my channel. And I went, let's pair it with computing. Let's open a craft beer every episode. And it just makes sense. You know, it makes sense on so many levels. And you know, and from the beginning it was, let's DIY some stuff. But build everything with care and intention. And I love that definition.
Jeff's last name is computing.
Is computing.
What are you talking? Oh man.
I also spent a not
Jeff.
insignificant amount of time scrubbing personal information from the internet prior to the inception of craft computing.
Yeah.
Reddit accounts, previous Twitter handles, gamer tags. Like I didn't want any association. I didn't want, oh, Jeff said this one thing 8 years ago and he's really an asshole for that. It's like, I don't really fear for that, because I
don't think I said anything.
I don't think I said anything offensive,
be?
But at the same time, it's like, 20 years ago, I was an ignorant teenager, and I don't want any of that. So I purged everything months in advance of launching craft computing.
I got in a shouting match with somebody on Reddit the other day, and you would have approved of it. Let's just put it like that. They were being
I'm known for my clapbacks.
Yeah, they were being quite an insufferable prick on airline rewards subreddit, complaining significantly. And it's like, if you look at their complaints and you know anything about the rewards program, you know that they just clearly didn't read past the headline and just assumed a bunch of things. And this guy got really bent out of shape with it. And I started giving him, like, it was when we had the free rewards on Reddit, and I started giving him awards to everything. And I was just like saying, like, can you stop being like so insufferable? I think that's what I said. I think you sound like an insufferable prick. That's what kicked the whole thing off.
Yeah.
And he started trying to dox me on my Reddit account, which is a moderator for my former employer account, which is very publicly who I am, and I'm all over. And he starts like putting my full name in there. He's like, "That's your name, huh? Guess you never shave, huh? Blah, blah, blah." So I click on his link, and it's like, clearly, like, I could deduce pretty close to where you live based on your stupid post history. And he tried to DM me at that point. I was like letting it go, kind of like moving on with my day. And he started DMing me and like DMing me addresses that I lived at in like 2010, when I like, you know, like second apartment, first whatever with the wife level of like years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, we're gonna.
Have you ever gotten one of the blackmail emails?
Oh yeah. Oh god, constantly.
You know what's hilarious? They nailed me 2 houses ago.
Really?
So if anyone's not aware of this, there is a scam out there that people will find influencers, online personalities, celebrities, whatever else, and they did get my name correct. They got my name, but they say Jeff blank, and then they'll list your home address in the subject, and then they attach a PDF to that. And if you open that PDF inside of Gmail, it's, "Hey Jeff, I know you run this YouTube channel.
We know what videos you
Craft
watch
computing.
on the internet.
I know what videos you've been watching. I have access to your webcam. I know all the dirty stuff that you've off to in the last 3 years. And what's really hilarious
I'm gonna get
is
so many subscribers off of this.
what's really hilarious is I lived in a tiny little town. I lived in a town of like 1,200 people when I started craft computing, and that's the house that they targeted and went, I know you own this house, and I know you live here. And they posted a picture from an MLS listing from when I sold the house, of like, and then they said, you have no idea the kind of power I have in this town. And they named the town, which is really freaking stupid because I know all 1,199 other people who live in that town.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I know how that works.
it's like, it's one thing if it's like, you have no idea the power that I have in Orange County, California, or Chicago, Illinois. But it's like, in boring Oregon.
Right. Oh man.
You don't know what I'm capable of in the town of Weed, California.
I got well, so there was a running joke, and the email's no longer active, but my old work email address, somebody kept signing it up for suspicious services for a while. I'm talking dating sites, newsletters to various political affiliations, yeah, insert hub, all of it. And it got to a point where it was kind of a meme, and it must have filtered into one of those things because they started coming in, and it literally I think they're bots, because they grab and scrape data. There might be some that are probably operated by humans, but I think a lot of it is bots just trying to sketch stuff.
Yeah.
Because it was pulling in so much disaggregated information that wasn't true. It was like, where are they getting this from? I've never lived in New Jersey. Like, what are you talking about? Like, wild.
Yeah. But no, it's so funny because it's like, it met me up to the point of which I started deleting data and started like caring about my online footprint and caring about who I was online, because I started my channel with the intention of, if I ever make it big, I want to do everything right from the inception. I don't want to have to erase footprints once they've already been laid. And so, yeah, there are still breadcrumbs that lead you to 2014 or 2016, but that's kind of where the trail goes cold. And what's really funny is a lot of these blackmail things, they get me to that point, and it's like, yeah, you got me. I haven't lived there in 5 years.
I think the best one ever that I had was somebody actually, it had to have been like a ring of like scammers or something. Spear phishing. And it was very, very targeted, and I think they session hijacked one of my travel laptops. Everything got wiped after this breach, because within a period of about a week, I had $1,000 of airline gift card stolen. $5,000 for an e-bike was charged directly to my checking account. And there was like 2 or 3 other things that happened. I never figured out exactly what it was, but I know that there was a series of emails that I was getting that I was like, finally was just like, what the heck is this? Is this something? But I think it ended up being, that was a spear phishing attack. And luckily, because it was one of my travel laptops, and the only things I really did was type into Google Docs and check to make sure that, hey, can I buy this stupid trinket here?
Yeah.
I was on the road, awake in the middle of the night because I couldn't sleep, and I get an alert on my phone that there was a charge for, like I said, almost $5,000, if I recall. It might have been 3. It was 3 or 5. Something 950, very close to the top there.
Yeah.
And I look over. Oh, nope, wife's sleeping right there. That wasn't her.
Yeah.
Phone on the bank. Hey, shut it down.
Yeah.
And that created luckily, you know that I travel the country constantly. I'm
Yeah.
never really at home.
Right.
Luckily, I was very close to home that day, and I
Mhm.
could go to my local credit union and get a new card. Had I been anywhere else in the world
Oh yeah.
or the country, I would have been dead in the water.
It's actually frightening when you're an online personality who can be the target of spearphishing things of
Mm-hmm.
I have a credit card I only use when I travel. I
Yeah.
don't buy Amazon shit on it. I don't put eBay purchases on it. It's not linked to my PayPal. It's not linked to anything else. It is the card I use when I travel.
Mm-hmm.
Because that card can never be violated. If it is, I'm sunk. Because
Yeah.
that's what I use when I check
Right.
into hotels and buy airlines and buy.
You're grabbing on gas machines and
Right,
the
yeah.
standards. Like, oh, well,
Oh, I'm not swiping this at my local 7-Eleven. Like,
yeah. No, I feel you on that. It is important. And oh, friendly reminder for the entire audience. I don't know how many viewers we have right now. I hope there's at least a couple of you. Go update your Chrome, go update your iOS, go update your Android. Major CVE patches out today.
yes.
Cybersecurity. If you have the little thing in the top right, it's just Jeff and I drunk rambling. It's okay. Hit it right now. You'll come right back to us in 30 seconds.
Yep. In fact, mine says finish update right now. So I'm gonna
Maybe
do
you
it.
don't.
Yeah. The stream will stay up, but it will refresh my chat. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit finish update right now, just to prove what a good guy I am.
Yeah, it's I went around and did it at all my systems, and I held my wife down and made her update her phone and stop watching TikToks,
Yeah.
binging from it's being gone. But
Right.
major CVE updates that you guys just hit the update. It's, trust me,
Yep.
not fun stuff.
Yep. Yeah, that was what, a 9.3 was. It was up there.
Yeah, it was like bad. I think I saw the thing, and then I saw that there was an update, and I clicked on it, and I saw the severity, and I was like, yeah, go.
Mm-hmm.
And then Apple pushed out an update, I think today too, or in the last day or two for
Yeah.
it. No update for Android Chrome yet, I think, as of before the stream when I was doing the research for it. I didn't want to put it as an official topic, but I
Yeah.
figured it'd be worth bringing up.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, DeepSeek, as we
DeepSeek.
as we trail off
Yeah.
here.
Wow, how did we get that far off on a tangent?
We are. It happens. It happens. Yeah. Is it bad for Nvidia, good for gamers, bad for the market, good for AI? Like, however you want to spin this. Like, what would you put as what is DeepSeek's impact on the market as it exists today, regardless of whether we're talking direct or
I'm glad
tangential?
you asked. I'm glad you asked.
Yeah.
Because I have some thoughts. There's two schools of thoughts on this,
Mhm.
realistically. I'm very skeptical of the Nvidia panic. However, I think the efficiency of DeepSeek will help drive new innovation for AI compute in general. It's good for a lot of the industry. Tech Potato Podcast brought up a good point today about just because it's more efficient doesn't mean we're going to use less compute.
Right.
It just means we know how to use more compute more better.
Yeah.
Yeah,
a lot of the discussion about how do we scale up AI has been, well, we have $700 billion. And not like, is it going to cost $700 billion, but that's what we can put into it. And if you can increase the efficiency, hell, let's say even 4x, not even the 100x that DeepSeek and a lot of the articles have claimed. Let's say 4x. That means your 700 billion goes 4 times further. You're going to invest the same amount of money. You're not going to buy less.
Yeah, there would never be a reason to buy less if that money now goes further. If you're saying, yeah, Jensen Huang comes up and says, "Yeah, remember that shovel that I sold you? You didn't realize that if you go on the bottom, you click the button and it flips out like the SpongeBob uh, spatula with the turbo with the turbo flippers. That makes you that much faster."
Ugh.
Um, yeah, that's all he has to do is come out on stage with one of those turbo spatulas.
He's got the pickaxe and the spatula flips out
Yeah,
from the bottom. Like, oh
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
That's what he was doing with the shield and the "Am I worthy?"
oh yeah,
He was waiting for the spatula to appear.
yeah. Um, yeah. I don't think we're gonna see the market's not gonna reshape
The investment's not going to
some
drop off.
radical thing.
You're right.
Enterprise isn't gonna be like, oh crap, we can do this on A6000s now. Just buy those. Like,
Right.
no, no,
Right.
no, no.
Yeah. There are some things to learn moving forward for a lot of different parties involved. I think the biggest thing that we can take away from this is that DeepSeek is also open source. Unlike OpenAI, unlike a lot of the GPT models that are out there, the only big open source model right now is Llama.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even necessarily the best or the most efficient. It's simply the one that everyone can run. And so that often ends up being the point of comparison when you're trying to go like, well, which stack is better? Do I buy MI300s or do I buy, Blackwell 200, 200s? And it's like,
Yeah.
well, how well does it run the Llama 70B? And that's the answer that a lot of tech can give on a public sense. Where I have a big question about DeepSeek is because it's written in, I'm going to flip this around again, PTX or PXT? PTX.
PTX.
PTX. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's written PTX, how is the scalability? What is the rollout for different hardware? This was trained specifically on H800s, which is a China-specific model of the A100. It's an A100 with half the memory bandwidth.
Yeah.
How transferable, how portable, how whatever else is this particular model written in PTX? Because it's not CUDA. If you change the architecture, does it still compile and run? Can I run this on a B100? Can I run this on a B200? Can I run this on an A5000? Like, what is the actual impact of
inference or training? Because obviously you can inference it on anything, and
you can
actually
inference
that's
on
really
anything, right?
Yeah. If you're within the Nvidia GPUs, there should be. Don't take this as necessarily an authoritative answer, but
Right.
from my understanding, there should be compatibility within the Nvidia ecosystem.
Mhm.
However, optimizations between different architectures, chipsets,
Yeah.
that sort of thing, you're going to see losses.
Yeah.
You're not going to have portability to non-NVIDIA GPUs, obviously.
Right.
And yeah, does that's like saying, like, I've got code that's really well optimized for Haswell. Is it going to work good on AMD? Well, if your code only runs on Haswell, no.
Right.
But will it run on the newer Intel? Yeah, because the instruction sets are still there.
Right.
Going backwards is probably going to be harder depending on where they pegged kind of that high watermark.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, it's
and when you're writing an assembly, you actually have to worry about things like specific memory addresses and calls for within the architecture itself and locations of specific things. It's not as simple as an API, an API being a high level programming language such as CUDA, of saying, I'm going to call this function and then execute XYZ. You have to say, at memory address XYZ, I expect instruction A to exist. And it is a much different way to think about it, and something that ends up being a lot less portable to other architectures or other platforms.
Now, here's something that I actually have a question on.
Mm-hmm.
How much overhead is CUDA actually introducing over
Ooh,
PTX?
ooh.
Are we talking? What are we talking here? Are we talking a 5% overhead?
That's
Is
a
this not as important as we're thinking about? Because this is something that I actually don't know.
that's a spicy
Because
question. That's a really
yeah,
spicy question. I don't know either. Um,
everybody's talking about how it doesn't use CUDA. Great. But how much overhead is CUDA actually doing? Let me, let me text my best friend forever, Ian Cuttress, Dr. Ian Cuttress. Remember to include the doctor. He likes that.
do you realize it's 3 in the morning?
I'm just going to add it. I'm just going to tweet at him real quick.
Okay. Um, tweet at ping George as well. George is awake. George might even be watching the
Oh,
show.
George, if you're in the audience, George, how much overhead does CUDA bring in? And you better be in the after
Cheesecake
show. He's
16. I want to see your ping in the chat right now. What kind of overhead are we talking with CUDA? Because that's the big talking point right now. Is it doesn't use CUDA, but it also can't run on any other architecture. So it might as well freaking use CUDA if we're talking about portability. And that's really the big question about whether or not NVIDIA should be taking a stock hit or not, isn't it? Is at the end of the day, this still ran on 50,000 H800s. It still
and
required NVIDIA.
You're still locked to NVIDIA. You can't take it.
Right. That was the thing that blew my mind. And Allison corrects me. It's 4 a.m. in the UK. So Ian actually might be awake. We'll see. I could literally text Ian. I'm not going to.
I'm not going to do that. I'm gonna check his Discord status first.
He usually appears offline, but if you ping him if he's awake, he usually will wake up. And so
George says it depends on the code. Think of it like C to ASM. Okay, George, I don't know if that was okay. Sometimes C is just as fast as ASM.
Yeah.
And we all know how wonderfully optimized things like PyTorch and TensorFlow and all that really is. So,
right?
I still just can't get over all the tech CEOs going up on stage saying "hugging face."
Yeah,
it just tickles me pink every time I hear it. These people can't be serious, right? 2 years later, hugging face, hugging face, hugging face, hugging face.
Yeah. In theory, using the CUDA API, there should be minimal losses based on bare metal. And that's what we see with most high level to bare metal APIs from companies that develop hardware. So if you think Apple and you think their metal API for their graphics, right, there's less than a 1% loss. If you think Nvidia and you think CUDA, if you think even going into instruction sets and things like that, with AMD, AVX 512 and there should be minimal loss. However, there's still the overhead of asking the question, and are they asking the right questions to get the right answer through computation? And that's where you get a little blurry.
Yeah. Stock market drama, AI drama. Should we talk about politics next?
I was trying to avoid it. I mean, there's the whole let's implement a 25 to 100% tariff on anything made by TSMC, which I'm sure Jensen is just thrilled about.
Maybe that's the real reason for the stock crash.
I mean, Jensen's the one tech CEO that didn't bend his knee, right?
Yeah.
If you want to talk politics. I don't remember seeing a $1 million donation from Jensen Huang to the inauguration fund.
I don't either. That was a joke about the politics, but TSMC Arizona apparently is all online.
Yeah.
Or mostly, which is really freaking cool. That is, seeing fabs coming online in the States is very cool.
Yeah.
Just from like a flat out remove the politics side, it's really cool that we're like, hey, wait, we can do this affordably here.
Yeah. As
In
someone
some
who's actively
capacity.
trying to launch an electronics project and retail product right now, let me tell you, I'm nervous as fuck. I have already had to increase my price reactive to the threat of tariffs, and I don't even have a product yet. And a lot of my components are off the shelf, but they're assembled overseas. I tried doing a regional. I found a PCB manufacturer 30 minutes from my house that could build the parts that I want.
Oh, let me guess, 2.5x the cost.
2.3.
Oh.
Which means there's all of my profit margin. I'm also partnering with a company to do all of my logistics, all my shipping and receiving. So basically, I'm going to handle manufacturing and assembly, and I'm going to ship retail boxes to a third party, and that third party is going to handle sales transactions and last mile shipping. That costs 20%. For those who don't know, which means my costs have to go up 20% to get my expected return. Now you add the threat of a 25% tariff, and you add the added import costs of the various components that I need. You add a 30% tariff on aluminum. My cases are aluminum extrusion. They're raw aluminum. They're raw 6061 aluminum. My case prices went up 30% overnight.
I would argue, and there's a little bit of discussion in chat about TSMC too, but I would argue that if as more of these fabs and stuff comes online in the United States, that will eventually bring the prices down, right?
I think we will eventually.
It's economics of scale.
But the problem right now is I'm a small business at its infancy that's trying to enter the market.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
yeah, I wasn't necessarily talking in the context of tariffs, just more that it's cool that we're bringing fabs back.
Right. It's cool that we're bringing fabs back, but I love that he's like, we'll tax TSMC. Intel can build their own things. And Intel's like, actually, we're using TSMC right now.
Yeah. Actually, we don't really have a foundry.
Ooh.
Also, might be part of the reason Apple lost faith in us, but, whatever. Do you see that one?
Ooh, about Meteor Lake. Yeah.
Do you see that? The CEO of TSMC came out in a press interview today, I think, and said, Tim Cook told me that he doesn't think that Intel, or something along the lines of like, Intel is not a foundry and cannot be a foundry. And for the reasons he listed,
sounds plausible, shall we say? Shocked Pikachu. Right. So Pat Gelsinger, CEO ousted a couple of months ago from Intel.
Pouring out for the homie.
Pour one out, right? In some of his I was at some of his last public addresses as CEO, in which he was stating how big he is into foundry and how Intel, the company, the R&D and product division of Intel, will certainly always be a piece of Intel. But he is so big on making Intel Foundry such a vital component that he hopes one day that only 20% of Intel's Foundry customers will be Intel, and the others are people who are using Intel Foundry to produce parts. And so he goes, whether we're making parts for AMD or Nvidia or Apple or Qualcomm or Foxconn or whoever, I don't care as long as we're doing that good work. And I think that was a fantastic vision. But at the end of the day, you have Nvidia and Apple and Qualcomm and all these other companies going, Yeah, TSMC's got 4 nanometer and they're already fucking rolling with it.
Yeah. Economics of scale, man. Oh,
Pat, I love you and I hope you're well.
I love Pat Gelsinger so much.
Yes. Homegrown, like, the dude has worked at Intel for 15 years longer than I've been alive.
Yeah.
And to say, like, utmost respect to a self-made man, engineer, company leader, that there's no one else I'd rather strive to be. But then also, like, he also got some ice water dumped on him in the last 6 to 12 months of, no, this is the reality of where Intel's at right now. And that's why he ended up ousted. Like it's kind of the reality of the situation is Intel's not competing in the foundry, and they're also not competing in the R&D, and they're also not competing in the production. And that's why we are where we are.
That's a sticky situation to be in as a new CEO. That was a hard book that he was given.
Yeah.
To try and work through.
And unfortunately, he was trying to go for the actual long-term, long-burn, good plan solution, in my opinion, in my not vested in the company, outsider position looking in. Like, you take the long U-turn to make sure that everything eventually is on the right track. Instead of, let's make 3 investors happy and sell off all of our profitable assets right now so we can... Okay. Yeah. Now I'm kind of worried about where Intel's going to be in 18 months because of all of this. Like realistically, like with Pat at the helm, I'm going, in 5 years, Intel's going to be perfectly fine. And I said that from the very beginning of, like, Intel's going to need a 5-year turnaround. That's what it took AMD to get on the right path. And AMD was on the verge of bankruptcy a couple of times until the launch of Ryzen and Threadripper and Epic, which totally righted the ship altogether. But it's because they took 5 years to reset the company as a whole and refocus and re-engineer and retool and then deliver competitive products. And everyone's on the same page, and you can totally see that.
Dr. Lisa's an amazing, like, kind of leader for doing that too.
Absolutely. And I looked at Pat, and I look at Pat doing a lot of the same things, going, look, I know this particular product today is probably not going to be the most successful product we've ever had. However, it is a stepping stone to the direction we need to go. And I said exactly that with the launch of Xeon 6. I said the development of tiles and the assembly process that they're aiming for and the modularity that they're aiming for, it is absolutely the right direction to be heading.
Yeah. Did you get the Xeon 6 tile in the acrylic, or were you not there?
I didn't get the acrylic. I didn't.
I'll go get mine for the after show to make you really jealous.
You
it's upstairs. It sits on my desk. It's one of my most prized possessions, actually. It was very nice to get that.
Which one do I have one die under acrylic. I'm trying to remember which one I have. I think I have Alder Lake. I think I have an Alder Lake die.
Okay.
Acrylic little shelf piece. I think it's Alder.
Yeah, those are really fun.
Yeah. I used to have an 8-inch silicon wafer up on my shelf for quite a while. I don't know who it was by, but it was an 8-inch wafer. And it fell off my shelf one day and shattered into a trillion pieces. Oh man.
I have somewhere around here, I have a 4-inch wafer of 8088s.
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah. I have some extended family that's in the semiconductor industry. So okay. Got some plugs around.
That's cool. Yeah, I don't even remember what this was. Like what it, but I remember I bought it for, it was only like $35, and I went, I want that as a back piece because that's such a cool thing to have. Like I don't care if they were network chips or 386.
They're fun to look at.
They're fun to look.
Every time you look at them, it's like little tiny cities in there.
There's so much detail in them, and And it was so cool. And one day, I'm sitting at my desk, and the wafer just goes whoop and yeets itself.
They're so fragile too.
I'm so mad.
Oh, that sucks. Can you do me a favor? Can you cover Linux kernel real quick for a second? I have to go do a quick thing with the. I'm beckoned. It's late here. Hold on one second.
Absolutely, no worries. So yeah, we do have some Linux kernel news to get to, and I'm actually glad that that Jordan brought this up. That according to Tobias, a tiny, insignificant Linux kernel tweak could 30 lines of code to the Linux kernel, to the network stack, could save data centers upwards of 30% of energy consumption. And this is a release that's going live as of the 6.13 kernel, which is making its way into public channels right now. It is such a novel approach to how Linux has built its networking system out. Typically, it has been interrupt driven. And so there has had to be basically a constant process in the background going, and this is very layman terms. This is very layman. Is the network talking? Is the network talking? Is the network talking? Okay, the network's talking. I'm going to listen now. Hold on. Okay, the network said something. I'm going to relay that now. Okay, is the network talking? Is the network talking? Is the network talking? Is the network talking? It's a CPU cycle that runs over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. That's waiting for the network process to interrupt a CPU cycle. And the new process is simply a handshake that takes place that says, I don't need to listen, but if you just send me like 3 lines, if you just send me 3 instructions, I will start to listen and then we can talk. And so it adds essentially 0 latency to the entire system and saves upwards of 30% on CPU cycles for waiting for network response. It is such an interesting little nugget of networking topology and IRQs and interrupts and things like that. Hey, Jordan's back. Cool. We can ask Jordan if I was accurate there.
No, that was actually a really good explanation of it. So I was listening the whole time. I had to go deal with children.
Yes.
That was a really, really good explanation, actually. I don't know how much more
Hey, network. Okay, now I'm going to listen.
Yeah.
But weren't you already listening? Weren't you wasting CPU cycles on waiting for me to say something? Why don't you just wait until I say something and then wake up?
Right.
Like, at its simplest point.
So much broader implications for performance on things. It'll be fun to test and fun to play with.
Yeah.
And
there's so many of these little things in like the deepest depths of not only the Linux kernel, but the way hardware acts as a whole, because of the architecture that we built off of 30 or 40 years of CPU and network development that are based on interrupts, that are based purely on a system like this, where there's a CPU process if the network kernel is or if the network driver is active. That comes back piece of the CPU is going, I'm waiting.
Yeah. That comes back to what I mentioned too earlier about how the AI stack and the CUDA stack and all that stuff was built so quickly with Nvidia, and they're seeing massive returns on refining the software from all these spots that nobody's looked at in a while and realized, holy crap, we have a better way of doing this.
Right.
And there's, this sounds like it was a chunk of the kernel that was written by someone who knew what they were doing, right? Like it's not like it was a bad way to do it, but it was looked at through a new light from somebody who really, really knows the subject. And they were able to go, holy crap, there's a much better way to do this. So that's why, I mean, it speaks to the power of open source, right?
Yeah.
It's, if you can spend the time to go back and look at it and say, oh, why did I write that way? And anybody who's a developer in the chat will relate to this. You
Yeah.
go, what was I thinking?
I have called this out so many times, but it's always a fun anecdote to add to
Yeah.
situations like this. Of, do you realize in Windows 7,
It's code from like,
the application progman.exe still exists.
yeah.
The original Windows shell program manager still exists in its entirety and is runnable even on 64-bit systems.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because there are dependencies within the Windows shell that still call within DLL files of program manager for basic Windows functionality, for basic file browsing, for basic search, for basic folder management, that it had to reference a DLL file from 1993. And they went, yeah, that's just how it works.
Also, probably a good, motivational poster. Just because the way that it is doesn't mean that it's the way that it has to be, right?
That was actually a big part of my mission statement for my team when
For Axe Effect or
no, for when I did IT management, when I ran an IT department, is we dealt with so many customers and so many situations of, well, that's the way we've always done it. And when you take a step back and you break down what the needs actually are, and I'm not talking needs of a PC, I'm talking metaphysical needs. I'm talking, we dealt with a lot of federal, we dealt with a lot of state, we dealt with a lot of education, we dealt with a lot of private sector, healthcare, etc. And so the ramifications of this are far spreading. But one of my favorites was in education. Well, we've always projected an image up onto the screen. And when I was a kid, it was overheads.
You can still smell those light bulbs.
Oh God, yeah, the halogen bulbs, shining through that transparency.
Oh, I want to take a nap now.
Right?
Half a bottle of wine and warm.
Oh,
halogen.
the lights are out. Oh God, yeah. Oh, that's the spot right there.
If you have the desk right next to where the teacher put the thing, and you get the warm,
the little warm breeze.
You.
Oh my God, yes. Totally
nostalgia hit.
Right. I can totally smell the dry erase markers that she's using on the overhead transparency.
The vis-a-vis.
Right, yeah, the vis-a-vis, yes. But we would deal with day in and day out. Well, I've been doing this process for 22 years. And it was someone who originally would write on the chalkboard. And then one day in 1994, when they got a computer and they were forced to use a computer, they put their lesson plan into ClarisWorks on their Macintosh LC2. And they printed a transparency with that. And then they brought in an overhead projector and put that transparency on an overhead. And instead of having to write down the equation every day, they could just simply solve the equation every day. Like it added to their efficiency, right? Yep. But then they stopped evolving. And so for 15 years, they used an overhead projector until we said, we're not buying overhead projector bulbs anymore. You're going to have to use the projector that's connected to your computer. Okay, well, my files are in ClarisWorks. Okay, well, that doesn't have a video output that is compatible with the projector. Well, you need to get me a computer that can project to the projector that I can use my ClarisWorks files for. And so we would do that. And they still wouldn't convert their files to a new format or anything else. And it's the way I've always done it. Until one day we showed them the magic of PowerPoint, or we showed them, hey, there's this new web app that you can use that you can ask it to draw this equation out for you and help you solve it. And it will do it in real time and animate it for you and everything else. And they went, wow, that's really neat. And it only took them 22 years to adapt. and suddenly they're okay with new technology, but you had to bring them along the way and show them kind of the new way to do things.
I
And
have a
just
response to Veronica.
yes, go for it. Blinks and Cobalt Dev. I get the response. I get it right away.
As someone who probably still has code running on a Cobalt system somewhere in the world.
So does Veronica.
She's way more OG than I am.
In solidarity.
I had one good project. But...
yes. But yeah, no, like that's a weird, that's a one-off use case that I can think of, that someone that I had a tech string along for 20 years because they didn't want to improve their process or change their process in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Until they were straight up forced to. It's like, no, we can no longer connect your G3 iMac to an HDMI projector. Like, there's a limit to where you can go. And...
But my planned obsolescence.
But you start looking at the code that was written in 1994 when we were first starting to actually network PCs together on a corporate scale. And we were starting to share files, and we were starting to collaborate multi-PC at the same time. And you wonder how many of those hooks still exist today. When I started my job in 2011 as the new IT manager. So I was hired in 2007 as the help desk manager, and then 2011 I became the department manager. In 2011, we as a department were still using a shared Excel document on Excel 2007, I want to say, which hadn't quite figured out multi-user editing.
Yeah.
And so
who's got the team sheet open?
Who's got the team sheet open? Sometimes it would let multiple editors in, and sometimes it would go, I don't know how to do this.
Locked by you.
Linda opened the spreadsheet, and Rich wants to open it right now. No, F that. I'm out.
Right.
And so you would have to go, who has it open right now? Oh, Linda has it open right now. Well, Linda's out at another building solving one of the tickets that she had open.
Oh, and she unplugged her laptop and took it with her. So when she comes back, the session's not going to restore.
So the temp file is active,
persistent.
but her current session is not. So I literally cannot close the session if I wanted to until she physically shuts down the computer and tells it to disconnect. Right. But that's the way we've always done it.
It's the way we've always done it.
The way we've always done it.
It's the way she be.
Exactly. And so it's like, we need a ticket system.
Yeah.
We need a web-based ticket system that is a multi-user. It doesn't matter who's in, who's out, who's editing, who's not, who's viewing, who's managing, who's assimilating. We need something that serves us now, not something that serves the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
It's one of the first processes that I broke that my boss hated me for, because my boss hated the web app that we developed. But at the same time, my team worked 8 times more efficiently because I could assign tickets to specific people instead of having, oh yeah, Linda, you're line 237 on this spreadsheet today. Yeah.
Oh God, I've worked on teams like that.
Yeah. That's the team that I took over. Yeah. We would have a weekly meeting where we went over the spreadsheet and all 300 items that were on the spreadsheet. And I assigned all of those items to the different teams. And then on Friday, I would expect them not to be cleared or deleted, but for the row to be grayed out color-wise.
Yeah, make sure you pick the correct gray.
So I knew the item was solved. With no note-taking ability, mind you. And so we didn't have a resource to go back and see prior tickets. Oh, we've solved this 4 times already, and it's still a problem? Oh, crap. No, it was simply the item doesn't exist anymore, and I'd create a new spreadsheet over the weekend for every Monday morning meeting. And I did that for like 3 months, and I'm like, there has got to be a better way.
Yeah. Veronica's out here working on code bases older than her parents, so she doesn't care about your stupid
Veronica says
working
something
Excel
more
sheets.
modern like MS Access. Veronica, you need to talk to one of my co-hosts, Hops and Brews, about his Access 95 databases.
I love Access for some very deep personal reasons, and I don't feel like it got like sequel just came in and overshadowed it immediately. But it's for like an office of like 5 people, it works really well.
Right.
You don't need a SQL server, just have access. But then, oh, now everything's on the cloud.
Yeah.
Gotta have the cloud. Don't you want to pay $5 a month every month forever till the day you die?
Oh, don't I?
It's gonna be great, Jeff. It's gonna be great.
I said, don't I?
It's gonna be great.
Do not I?
Do not, Jeff. Jeffant.
Jeff.
I Jeffant want that.
Well
Oh,
done.
man.
Uh,
Should we move to the games and entertainment
yes,
section
I was
of the
actually
rants
just
now?
pulling that up.
I have a monologue for this,
Do
so if
you?
you need a,
I have not heard of this game, and I
okay,
am
can you put
legitimately
the
thrilled to
Steam?
know more.
Okay,
So
can you put the steamy thingy on the screeny majigger?
here's the
So
screeny, here's the steamy thingy on the thingamajigger. I'm restarting the video. Go.
Digxium. I heard about this. I was doom scrolling YouTube Friday, Saturday, something. Maybe it was Sunday. I remember because I was like, I have to work tomorrow. Crap. And one of the Let's Play channels had this featured, and it was like, is this the best $3 game ever? It was RCE. And I watched about 3 minutes of his video of gameplay of this thing, and it was probably 11 o'clock at night. And I went, shit, I'm not gonna sleep tonight. Went to Steam, paid my $3, downloaded it, played the entire game. 3 hours. Yes, it's a 3 hour long game if you like commit to it. You can also slow roll it if you want to, but
I've
for
wasted $1 an hour on so much worse than that.
I've if you can find my review probably if you go down under recent reviews, because I think I wrote it today or yesterday. I've said I've paid 10x as much for that I have for this game than I have and gotten 1/10 the amount of fun out of it.
Yeah.
I something about it captivated me immediately. It's perfectly balanced. It's an indie dev. It's amazing. It's a very simple kind of idle clicker. You don't have to pay you don't have to pay attention to it. You can leave it running on the monitor on the left in windowed mode and actually probably do better in the long run. If you want to speed run it, you can do what I did and be like, crap, I'm addicted to this within 30 seconds of downloading it and installing it. But the overall, like the basic premise of it is you're opening a museum and you've got to go around and collect artifacts.
Mm-hmm.
And to do that, you have to dig up the ground. And, some of the ground is easier to dig up than the other. And yeah, you play through it. And it's got a cute story and it's got a good mechanic for the upgrade, as you can see through the Steam thing. It's not too hard where you have to sit there and think your brain off about it, and it's not too too easy where you don't have fun or feel engaged or feel not engaged rather, I guess. I wanted to highlight it. Like I said, I saw it from RCE. Yes, fellow viewer.
A lot of people quoting RCE in this one. Also saying perfectly balanced. No one tell the spiffing Brit.
Yeah. All of us YouTubers are in
Hello,
a secret
you
cabal.
fine internet people.
Yes. all of us YouTubers are in a secret cabal where we all communicate constantly and about everything.
I was just
Um,
enjoying some fine Yorkshire tea,
which is perfectly balanced,
which
as
is
all things should
perfectly
be.
balanced as all things are meant to be. I am the Spiffing Brit.
But yes,
I've never
the
done that voice
Xeon.
before. I'm actually not that bad at it. If I
Yeah,
do say
wait
so
till you watch
myself.
the VOD. We'll send the VOD to Ian
Well,
and
yeah. Hello, you
um
fine internet people.
no, but if you saw the RCE video on it, again, I didn't even watch the full video. I just watched the first 2 or 3 minutes and went,
I'm in.
I knew it. It was like $3. Like I have that in my Steam wallet at all times. I like to keep like $10 to $15 in my Steam wallet as not guilty money,
Yeah.
where I don't, it's like one bite cupcakes. You don't feel guilty for eating a one cupcake in one bite, right? Like
I earn cards for playing games, and by playing games I mean usually benchmarking, and I will sell those cards on the market, and then when a $3 or $4 game comes along, it's like, well, that was free just for the job that I do. That's awesome.
yeah. I would like to know what your Steam level is. What is your Steam level, Jeff?
It's high.
What is it?
I don't have it on this PC actually. I specifically did
Oh,
not install Steam on
oh.
this computer.
Do you have the app?
Um,
You can pull it up on the app.
can I pull it up on the app? Hold on. Am I logged in on the app? I am logged in on the app. Okay. Me, view profile. 17.
42.
Okay, yeah. What's your library count?
Wait. Apparently that's not readily available at the top. Oh, 191.
718.
Damn, bro.
So you're filling in for Steve tonight, who was unexpectedly out of town. All three of
Yeah.
my normal co-hosts, John, Rhett, and Steve, are not in town tonight, and that's like a weird circumstance. And so it's like at like 1 p.m. today, I'm going, does anyone else want to co-host the show? That'd be great.
He's like fourth string quarterback. Let's go. Everybody
So
else
I have
there.
718 games in my Steam library, and I'm like, yeah, I'm what's up, you know? Steve has 4,400.
How?
Some of them were humble bundles.
Oh, okay. So this is something that
That's his favorite excuse, but the answer is he buys everything.
So
some of them were 2 at a time.
I'm thinking of if I'm allowed to disclose this or not. Hold on. How can I say this without potentially? Okay, so I have another Steam account that has every single game technically added to it that was this is like spiffing Brit levels of exploit, right?
Oh. I
So
am intrigued.
have you ever like bought a game and been like, this is shit, and returned it and it's still in your library,
like,
but you can't play it?
Not still in my library. I will say I have utilized Steam Return, I think 3 times ever.
Oh, I'm aggressive about it, especially with early access stuff that's like false advertising. I get like really upset.
I wish I would have done that for No Man's Sky and then rebought No Man's Sky later.
Yeah.
Because
it sends a clear message.
I tried No Man's Sky. I tried to return that. But I played it for 13 hours on release night. But the problem is with a game that big, I didn't realize I had been swindled until 13 hours in when I hit my 3rd planet and I went, it's the same fucking thing.
Yep.
And so I tried escalating that one, and I didn't even take the first no answer. I said, no, this is crap. This is not what was expected. Yeah. And I still got denied. And I went, all right, fine, I'll keep it. I did return the Tony Hawk Pro Skater and Pro Skater 2 remaster. I am thoroughly disappointed with that. I bought that as part of the winter sale this last December, and spent about 3 minutes playing it and went, the controls are jank. Nothing, the physics aren't the same. Nothing is the same about this game.
That sucks.
And it's
I'm
not.
glad I skipped that one.
And it's not me, because I was decent at that game, and all of a sudden,
Yeah.
everything is different. And
So all I'm hearing is that I'm much more of a selective Steam curator than you are.
yes,
With my 191
I've had
level 42.
I think the other one that I did was I tried No Man's Sky and I got denied on that, and I tried again and I got denied again, and I'm like, all right, screw it. I did return Tony Hawk and Tony Hawk 2, and I also returned Flat Out 4. So the Flat Out series of games was originally for the Xbox and originally for the Xbox.
It was PS2?
PS2, Xbox One, exactly.
I think I
Xbox
had
original. One, yeah. And it was a destruction derby type simulator. And the first 2 games were amazing. And then Flat Out 3 came out, and it was okay. But then Flat Out 4 came out, and it promised to be a new game, and what it was a minor remaster of the first 2 games. And I went, that's not what I signed up for.
Yeah, that's like them trying to charge $60 for Red Dead Redemption on PC.
Right, exactly.
What are you doing?
Right.
I
didn't buy Red Dead Redemption, but I have it in my possession.
Oh. Have you played Wreckfest?
Oh, yes.
I love that game.
You need to come out to PDX Land, where we got a 12-player game of Wreckfest going last, not last PDX Land, but the one before that.
Harvester?
I need to get you out for PDX Land.
We'll talk about it. I think that would be very easy to pull off with some very simple, like, double queen room type situations.
I got a double queen room. We can fit you in.
Okay. You know what game I want to see revived, remastered, redone?
What's that?
Is Roadkill. It was a GameCube game, also Xbox, I believe. I don't know if there's a PlayStation port. But Roadkill, GameCube. If you look that up, absolutely horrifically full of swearing, drug use, paraphernalia.
I'm on board.
Rated like NC-17 or something. It was like bad. But this game defined my childhood, as far as like, or not even my childhood, but like my late teens, which I guess, yeah, child, right?
Yeah.
God, I'm just realizing like how old I am based on how old my kids are now. Crap.
Doesn't that suck?
When you go childhood, and it's like, yeah, that's like,
oh God, I was my kid's age.
Yeah.
9 years before this game came out.
Yeah, not even. Because it's what, 2008? Earlier
if it's
than that?
It 03.
Yeah. Yeah. I was older than my kids when this thing came out.
I got married in 2006, and I've been married for 19 years.
Fuck, I'm old.
Right?
And I'm quoting the subreddit, right? No, Roadkill. Missed that game so much. I want to see a remaster because the mechanic was so simple for it, but so well balanced for what it was, where you couldn't get out of the car. And that was the whole point of the game. There was a super chat that we missed that was asking about what car do I drive, and I'll answer that in a second.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, Cosworth was saying, Jordan, what do you drive? Subaru was my bet. That's not my bet.
Jeff knows me too well. Actually, I would like chat to put their bets in and what they think I drive, because I've already alluded to it.
What do you think that Jordan drives?
I have two vehicles, two primary vehicles that I use.
Okay.
They're not polar opposites, but they're they're kind of opposite in the same quadrant. If
Okay.
you can guess either one, you get points for it.
Okay.
Um,
Hey, Jordan, what do you think I drive?
I know what you used to drive,
You
and
know
I'll
what I
make you
used to
cry.
drive?
Yeah. Is it a Subaru?
It's not a Subaru.
It's not a Subaru.
I've
No, I
never
feel
owned a
like you're a
Subaru in my
Tacoma or
life.
a Tundra. I feel like you're a Tacoma or a Tundra or maybe like a Forerunner kind of guy.
Ooh, you're actually really close as far as to what I used to be.
Okay.
I've never owned a Tacoma or a Tundra or a Forerunner. I did
Okay.
for a number of years own a Nissan Frontier. I drove a 2013 Nissan Frontier, and so again a mid-sized truck, but it was also a
Right.
6-speed manual, V6 4-liter, 4-wheel drive, rear lockers, like all that jazz. Sold that car when I got the van because we had a third kid. And now admittedly it's a little weird because in 2017 I bought a Nissan 350Z Roadster, and I loved that car, but I actually sold that car in October. And so now it's just whatever I have. And what I have is I bought a truck for the business, and I have a 2012 Ram 1500 5.7 Hemi,
Okay.
which is a great truck. And then I also have
I'm sorry, what year is it?
2012.
Okay. So my wife drives the same generation Hemi Durango.
Okay, yeah. Great rig. Like,
the motor is really good. There's a reason why we refer to them as shipping crates. It's because you bought a shipping crate for the motor,
yes.
which is really good. The rest of it,
yes, yeah.
that's a...
Yeah. If you can live with some of the little other things that happen with the car that aren't necessarily the most mechanically sound, overall the drivetrain is immaculate on those vehicles. It's just the windshield wipers chatter, and your door hinges will squeak, and your rear seats will rattle, and things like that. And things like that I'm not too concerned with.
Are your trim pieces falling off yet?
When I bought the truck, hold on, let me finish.
Okay.
Because you know the cup holder situation in the front.
They
right?
sold it to you with a bottle of super glue?
No, when I bought the truck, because you know the cup holder situation in the front, in the center console in the dash where the cup holder thing flips down, the cup holder was missing. The whole door was missing out of the center of the dash, and so I had to buy one to put in there.
Luckily they're cheap because they always break.
Because they always fall out. And so someone's like, this just fell out of a 2013? I think it'll fit your rig. And sure enough it did. And mine is working great now. But yeah, no, I had to replace the center cup holder fold down thing in my truck.
Well, you're making me feel bad about what I'm saying now.
But then my other rig is the first family rig that my wife and I bought together. And we've owned this rig for almost 14 years. It's a 2008 Mazda CX-9.
Those are cool.
It's a 3.8 liter V6 all-wheel drive. 290 horsepower. But in a crossover with all-wheel drive. And it's great.
Yeah.
And what's funny is I was thinking about trading it in over this last year, going like, man, I could really use something newer. Something, this is a 16, 17-year-old car at this point. Like it.
But 2007, 2008 does not feel that old.
It doesn't feel that old. Exactly.
It's not like, I feel like when we were kids, if you had like, okay,
if my parents had an 85
Honda, that was an old piece of shit.
Right.
But now when you say I have a 2007 Dodge Durango, it's like,
you're like,
that's not that old.
Oh, that's a good year.
Yeah.
It's not, oh, that's a hunk of crap, and how is that thing even alive, and it must be on life support, and the maintenance alone has got... No, it's like, oh no, Mazda made great things in 2008. Like that's the the thing that's the immediate thing my brain goes to is,
Yeah.
wow, what a
I
great rig.
forget how old my wife's car is, and I owe her a new one, and I'll figure that out at the end of this year.
Yeah.
Because I have
But I was
two now.
looking at trading in our 2008 Mazda CX-9 and possibly my truck and like consolidating the rigs and getting something and whatnot. And I went, well, what is my rig actually?
Yeah.
What it is a crossover SUV that's all-wheel drive with 280, 90-ish horsepower. Leather interior, which I've upgraded to Android Auto, and I also have a rear and front camera system in the thing. And I've done a couple other things to it, but nothing extraordinary. Like I've got a tow package on it and things like that for towing our tent trailer. And I go, okay, well, what would I trade it in for? Okay, I would spend $40,000 on a Hyundai Palisade or a new CX-9 or this or that. Okay, well, what are those cars? Well, they're a V6 with 290 horsepower, with all-wheel drive, with 20-inch wheels, with leather interior, with this, with that, with that. I went, what the hell am I trading in this car for? Honestly.
Why bother at that point, right?
It's 150,000 miles, but it runs like a frickin' top. And I went, what am I going to trade it in for? Because the leather isn't quite as worn down.
So I'm going to send you a picture from my phone as I explain to chat what I just bought for myself.
Oh boy.
So you actually probably know this. What I've had for a while is I have a BMW 760
Yes.
Li,
Yeah.
which is the twin turbo V12.
Yes.
Love that car. I'm probably going to buy a newer one.
I test drove at one point a 2007 840i.
So the 8's a coupe, the 7 is a limo.
Correct.
Wheelbase.
Correct. Yeah, it was the extended door coupe.
Yep. There's a refrigerator in the back of the thing.
Yeah.
Like it's fully it's Bond movies have these things as like the villain cars.
Yeah.
I love it. It's got every bit of 600 horses on it, and I haven't tuned it or done anything horrible to it. I recently just bought myself a brand new Yukon XL Denali.
Okay.
And the 6.2 ultimate package. It's great. I love it.
Yeah, there's nothing identifiable in this, so I'm just gonna throw it out there.
That's fine. Yeah, that's generic enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy with it. I had a lot of angst about buying something that new and that expensive.
Yeah.
I did not buy it new.
Yeah.
It is close to it. It's one of the tail end of the chip shortage vehicles.
Okay.
Which means it does not have auto start stop, and it does not have the AFM/DOD, which is it can go into 4-cylinder mode. Now it still has the lifters,
the cylinder
inside
deactivation,
of it,
right?
Yeah, which is a huge problem with the 6.2. And I've decided that I'm going to go ahead and proactively address that, because I placed an order for the Whipple 3-liter supercharger to take it up to 700 horsepower and make it into basically what is a Hellcat without buying a fucking Stellantis product. Oh, can I say that here? Sorry.
You just did, so that's fine. Look, I own a 2012 Dodge. Would I buy a current generation's Stellantis product?
I'll buy a 2012 again.
Yeah. My 2012 is actually for sale if you want to buy a Dodge with a 5.7 Hemi.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm building my own Hellcat.
I'm just throwing it out there. 390 horsepower, 420 foot-pound of torque, 6-speed automatic. It's a good rig. If you're interested in a 2012 Ram 1500 with a 5.7 Hemi, DM me. Just
Send an
saying.
email to info@craftcomputing.com.
Business at craftcomputing.com. Yeah, there you go. But
Yeah, I spent a really long time mulling over kind of that decision to make an automotive upgrade of that level because of
yeah,
the privacy concerns. There's a lot of regular car reviews published video
we have a
publicly today.
2022 Toyota Sienna, so I totally feel you.
Yeah. Um, I've done the opt out vehicle privacy report.com, I believe it is. Please correct me if I'm wrong, chat. I've done the opt out on it, but I bought it and purchased it after that whole thing. Um, I don't know. New cars are weird, man. I'd like to I'd like to get the bus unlocked. There's some fun stuff with the open self-driving. There's a lot of good work going on. If I have to go through this route again, I'm gonna go to that open self-driving reference kind of page, and I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
pick something that's on there, because then at least you know it's not encrypted on the local bus. And I get it. Oh, hackers could get into your bus on your car and blah blah blah. But also, my I bought it. I should be able to do what I want with right to
Right,
repair. Right.
right.
You start getting into that whole argument, which is interesting.
I'm looking for my
Um,
Flipper Zero. It's not immediately.
yeah, apparently these trucks are ridiculously easy to steal with those.
yeah.
So glad I have full coverage and don't care. Oh, fun. Okay, so this is self shameless plug for me.
Jordan's
Um,
tech junk.
yeah.
Yes.
One of the projects that I'm working on right now, so just did some upgrades to it. This is like an ongoing video thing. I've got a lot going on in my life, and I'm doing things as quickly and best as I can. Uh, I have a tiny Plex server based on an Nvidia Shield, a whole kind of like package deal
Mm-hmm.
that goes into the back and plugs into rear seat entertainment for the kids that I've been working on. That kind of just like, how do we harden this so rain, sleet, snow, mud, sand doesn't affect the device,
Right.
but also can properly interface with the vehicle in a way that's meaningful and give everybody what they want when they're in the back. You probably know as well as I do. Long road trip needed. Screen in front of child. Dad not stressed.
Yes. Our Mazda in particular, the CX-9, has the rear seat entertainment package, which is the 10-inch flip
Yeah.
down DVD thing in the rear. That also has a set of auxiliary inputs in the rear seat in the third row.
Okay.
Which for a while I had a Raspberry Pi with a Plex server plugged into. And so the person in the rear seat could control a Plex server and display whatever content they wanted in the rear seat entertainment system.
So this has a pair of HDMI inputs and a video like the USB Type C can take and read videos on it.
Yeah.
So I'm working through some stuff. There's format issues, but the idea that I want to get to is a full like Plex installation, and everybody has like an Apple TV remote because that's easy enough to use for, at least my kids know how to use it because that's what we use in the house. But I want to have like a full like Plex server installation because we will regularly do 36-hour long road trips. And when we bought this, that was what we did. The day we bought it, we took it back to our house and then drove it 36 hours to our cottage.
Yeah.
And it was like, my wife and I looked at each other and we're like, I'm tired. And she's like, I'm tired. I'm like, but I'm not exhausted from these damn kids. She's like, I'm not either. The TVs were great. So that's going to be the next kind of content that I'm going to just kind of fun things you can do around the house to make your life easier. If you're willing to sell your soul to the LexisNexis devil of whatever.
Yeah.
Speaking of driving to the cottage, in beer news,
In beer news, we do have some beer news. It's
unfortunately for all of our Canadian friends,
yes.
your your laughably tiny break on beer tax is coming to an end in
Yep.
approximately 15 or so, 16 or so days.
Yep.
Oh, I guess 17. Um,
Yep. February
so
15th, GST and HST breaks go away.
So do you know, well you know everything, but do you know that the break, at least where, so I was visiting family last month up in Ontario, what's a 30 pack of Bud Light go for around you
Ooh.
in your local currency? Like just Circle K, Fry's,
Right.
Kroger,
Driving to my local
Albertsons.
grocery store, a 30 pack goes for between 24 and 28.
Okay.
Sub
In
$1 a can.
Arizona, yeah, sub $1 a can. In
Yeah.
Arizona, if you find a sale, you can get like $18 a can, right? I was in the Ontario, you have to go to a authorized reseller or like a liquor store.
Mhm.
I was in there like a month and a half ago, and uh it was, while the rebate was going, the price was $52.50 Canadian, which translated to about 38 or 39 US dollars.
Mhm.
The normal price without the tax, are you ready? Are you holding on to your seat? For
Holding on.
Bud Light was $3 more. Now, obviously, they're being overcharged up there.
Right.
But with that being said,
I still don't like
I
it.
get I guess Canadian friends, I'm still laughing at your we're gonna make your beer cheap for the holidays tax. Canadian
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah,
Stock up now.
my
That was
developer for Axe
that was
Effect
my
is
whole
in
bit.
Montreal. So your complaints are not falling on deaf ears right now.
Yeah. And theirs is cheaper than Ontario.
Yes.
As I recall, going into Montreal, the price dropped to about a buck a beer
Okay. Yeah. That
for
sounds
the
about
for
right.
the cheap mass produced
Yeah.
stuff. It's all over the place. I like to use the reason I like to use like the Coors Light and the Bud Lights as like a reference is because you can buy it everywhere. You can ask somebody in Maine how much does a Bud Light cost, and somebody in Hawaii, and you can get a comparative, right?
Right.
Your Batman brew from tonight, which, can we show that artwork again? That was epic, actually.
Which artwork is that?
Your last beer before the Polish beer, your
Oh yeah.
Aquatine,
The yeah.
or what was it?
Heck yes.
Yeah.
The Haze Ghost Coast to Coast.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
sure completely official and licensed, by the way.
Also, 100% positive that that would cost twice as much if it was bought in Florida instead of very close to the brewery.
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, this brewery is like 15 miles from my house.
Yeah. It's cheap. Cheap 99.
I think this 4 pack was $12. So yeah.
Just based on the picture alone, I'm game for it. I want to try one.
It's pretty great. What's funny is it hits like one of those super acidic hazies that you don't want to drink more than 4 ounces of.
Uh-huh.
But then you keep drinking and you're like, this is still good. Like you keep waiting
Oh,
for that burn to just accumulate, and it just kind of, the burn is there, but it doesn't build.
that's what the bear has turned into.
Right.
Wrong way.
Yeah. So
Don't poke the bear. I brought these back with me.
I recommend this. This is really good.
I've hit everything that I want to hit tonight. Should we head to the after show?
Yes, I was actually about to say it's been almost 3 hours. So yeah, I think this is a good time to call it.
Thank you, you fine internet people.
Do you find internet people? Hello, you fine internet people. Yeah. This has been fun. Thank you, Jordan, for joining on such late notice. I very much
anytime.
appreciate it. It's great.
I'll always be your fourth string kicker.
Yes, yes. You're my Detroit Lions defensive lineman.
It ends up being okay.
Right.
It's not great.
It's not great.
We're not going to the Super Bowl with this.
Made the playoffs. It's all right.
Well, it's okay.
15-2 is good, right? Like,
yeah,
it's
close enough.
Totally fine.
You're an asshole.
I want to cry right now because I'm a Detroit fan, and so it hurt me so bad to dig you like that. It really did.
Did it hurt you, or did it really show how much you love me, Jeff?
A little of both. A little of both, if we're being honest. Because I'm willing to share that pain with you.
Yeah. No, I think you well and know how much that meant to me.
Yes. Yeah. You put 18 on injured reserve, and you win the first seed in the NFC, and then you lose to the team that gets blown out by 30 in their second round game. You're like, all right, good year? Good year? Yes. Okay, good year. Okay, cool. We made it further last year with less.
The disappointment is palatable.
Yes.
But
at least we didn't lose the Super Bowl, so we don't have to be the Vikings.
Oh, that would have been bad.
Because, the Vikings have been to the Promised Land and been sent packing 3 times. And at least Detroit's never had that. It's the little things that I like to hang over Minnesota that keep me going in this life.
Yeah, I could see you being that.
Your team has tempted you with more hope than mine ever has.
Anyways, before this gets uncivil, let's head to the after show where we can really throw down.
Thank you all so much for watching Talking Heads. This has been episode 367. Join us every week, every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Pacific time for the latest in beer and tech news. Hit up the replay of this on Spotify or wherever your favorite podcasts are found. And if you like the content you see on this channel and like to support us in what we do, join the Patreon. Link is down in the video description. Gets you exclusive access to the Discord, where you can chat with myself as well as the other hosts from Talking Heads and keep up with the community that hangs out there all through the week. Or head on over to craftcomputing.store, pick up some of my handcrafted merch. And I mean handcrafted. This is designed and cut right here in my garage. Everything is made to order. If you order something on Wednesday, I cut it on Thursday and then mail it to you. That's how this works. The laser cutter's in my garage. We've got pint glasses that are nucleated, and so you get fresh aromatics on every beer that you pour. We've got stone coasters with the this is one of my favorites, the beer installation disc in the style of Doom. I love this one. I've got one more. The In Case of DNS bottle opener.
Oh.
That's a favorite.
I've decided that I'm going to open a winery and just bottle whatever color grapes I can grow as DNS wine. And you can keep it wherever you want because it's going to be inconspicuous. I think I'm going to put it I'm going to bottle it in like a 1 liter water bottle so it doesn't look like anything.
Can you name your winery? DNS. Can you name your winery not an emulator?
Oh man. See, this is why we refine these ideas in the after show.
Right. Not an emulator winery.
DNS.
Kind of an emulator.
Oh, we're so bad.
Thank you all so much for watching. And as always, we will see you next week. Cheers, everyone.